All right, guys, welcome back to another live show. Looks like everything's working okay. It's a chill stream hangout, so I'm gonna put the link in the chat actually to come on, hang out. Don't want to misclick that button. The end stream button is really close to the putting stuff into the chat button, so don't want to do that. But hopefully everyone's doing okay. Let me unplug this. I was download while I took a nap, but I was downloading, transferring all bunch of stuff off the computer onto the new hard drive that we just got. Backup stuff, clear all the stuff off the computer. Ample amount of storage for the all the audio recordings and stuff that we get, and also all right, sorry about that, guys. All right, where was I? Yes, the link is in the chat. Um, yeah. Anyways, downloading stuff on the hard drive, getting that already because of the hours and hours and hours and hours and hours of recorded audio and stuff that we have. We have hours and hours and hours, hundreds of hours to go through still. Yeah, it adds up pretty fast, actually. It doesn't take much to accumulate all these hours of recordings and stuff. The link is in the chat to come on if anyone dares to come on or not. You know, you guys can hide behind a little mask, or let's just say screen, of course. But you guys can come on, chill, and talk about whatever and stuff. As long as it doesn't, get too unsenseless and stuff with stuff that really doesn't pertain to the Bigfoot topic or community, or if you're just going off the rails about crazy stuff, we're not going to be doing that on YouTube and stuff. They don't like that. They don't like conspiracy theories or truths, I should say, and all that kind of stuff. So we can't say that. That's about it. You can't talk about pretty much stuff like that. That's the only thing. Medical stuff. No, you can't really talk about medical stuff. If you guys know what I mean. YouTube doesn't like that. But there's been a couple interesting posts and shows and stuff going on. Yeah. Pretty much with some people basically making posts critiquing Jeff Meldrum or expressing their disdain for him, even though he's passed away and stuff. And I think Mr. Steve Coles from Squatch DTV, made a video and stuff talking about some people and stuff. And I'm not sure if you guys took a look at it and watched it and stuff, but Steve, I can't remember the other guy's name right now, but they give their opinions on various different people on what they posted and stuff, and their remarks against Jeff Meldrum and stuff. And one of them was Rob Kreider, and one of them was Mr. Duffy. And I'm not sure if they. It seems to me like they didn't have the full story of why Robert Kreider posted this, his post and stuff. And long story short, I think basically they've had some expeditions together, and I think Robert Kreider has talked about it on several different interviews. I want to say I'm fairly confident he talked about this on the interview he gave on our channel. Basically outlining that him and Meldrum were involved, I believe, in a Bigfoot research study and stuff, and basically it fell apart at the end with Robert claiming and stuff that Meldrum is faking evidence and or gatekeeping evidence, I should say, not really faking evidence, but the gatekeeping of evidence and of real evidence and DNA and things like that. So that is the very simple answer, because I'm not involved in stuff. I just remember stuff that I've watched and heard and Robert Kreider talked about and stuff. But basically, I think it was a university funded expedition that he was on and stuff, where they were finding stuff. And anyway, so that's basically, you guys can go find that stuff out. I don't have that ready to go, but I thought it was interesting because they didn't really have the full story, or didn't really talk about that too. Not like I'm trying to defend Robert, because he doesn't need defending. He can do that on his own. And then you have other people's opinions and stuff. And Steve Coles called out Mr. Duffy and stuff for his, I don't know, his posts, or what he said was rhetoric and violent mannerism, basically. And there are some people who made posts and I mentioned this I think in the last show, who, people were saying, that they didn't really like seeing all the other people, basically, as Bigfoot Truth puts it, this particular research organization, like everyone else, is sucking Jeff Meldrum's dick right now, but they're at it live. The post that I seen didn't put it as bluntly as as that, but basically, the people, that one guy was posting that, hey, there's a lot of people who are trying to use this event, Jeff Meldrum's death, as an avenue to, push their brand, basically, or push the narrative that, camping or meeting or sending stuff with Jeff, equals, um, is a, makes you valid and stuff, especially now that he's passed. And there was, a bunch of memorial shows, and 2 or 3 different channels did multiple, memorial shows and shows to honor and stuff. And some people might think that is just, it's good intentions and stuff. And other people might see that and say, oh, they're trying to monetize off of the event, get clicks and views based upon the content that they're able to produce, and, slap that Jeff Meldrum sticker on there, and, get people to watch just because of that. Just no other reason because of that. And obviously there's probably both sides to it a little bit. Most of it would be sincere, I would hope. Although there's a few people who, want to make extra little view count go up and stuff. It's kind of sad, but that's just how it is. So, and everyone has their own opinion about everyone in this world, and however they've been interacting with, and they got rubbed the wrong way. They might have not so pleasant opinion and stuff about it, but we got free speech. Everyone can feel how they want about anyone else, and that's just how it is. I mean, there's not everyone who's going to be friendly and nice to everyone. You should have the decency and stuff to respect the dead and stuff, respect stuff that's grieving. But I don't know if you've been personally wronged by someone, but I don't know if Jeff Meldrum ever personally wronged anyone and stuff, and if people should, or have the need to deteriorate his name and such without a full explanation of like a story or a firsthand account or things like that. Not just, if you based off his, he's a fake, or he's a hoaxer, or he's a bullshit, or he's government, or whatever. I mean, those are assumptions and stuff without proof of evidence, or proof of evidence of anything, not even. So anyways, that was my opinion on that, and Steve's show, and all that. They should probably reach out to Robert Kreider and get his backstory if they wanted to know exactly why he feels that way, other than trying to assume things and get some explanation out of a Facebook post that, it's doesn't really show much other than just a flat opinion that really takes, a conversation to get to the context and details of the true meaning behind it. And so there is a big long story behind that should probably do all that. No, I said Jeff Meldrum, not those kind of people. But it's a general sense of the dead, of the community, of a well-liked person. You don't really speak ill of the dead. You can, all those other people, obviously don't matter because of their actions and stuff, clearly. But Jeff Meldrum was not, again, unless, milking money doesn't really compare to everything else that you wrote on there. So that is basically what it means, basic common sense when it comes to that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of people trying to milk people for money in the Bigfoot world. It's a growing billion-dollar industry, multi-billion-dollar industry. It was $2 billion and growing like 10 years ago or more. with the continued content creation and ad revenue and monetization, and people will make videos of anything or have any bimbo on talking about a story that is half real or half-ass not, or just full fantasy. It doesn't really matter. The merchandise, you slap a Bigfoot on anything and then bam, all of a sudden it has more appeal. It has a niche. There's a niche community that would want that just because there's a Bigfoot sticker on it. You slap a Bigfoot sticker on it, Bigfoot logo. So yeah, there actually is a multi-billion-dollar industry growing annually, especially with TV and small-time content creators like us. Well, there's always, well, unless you actually have evidence that Jeff is taking a bribe and all that, it's just assumptions and hearsay and yeah, I mean that's what people do. That's what the government does, bribe you first and stuff. I fully believe that there are people in the Bigfoot community, high up, low, and all that, who are government and stuff. Government for various different reasons and objectives and stuff, but it is almost certain that there are government officials monitoring the Bigfoot situation, Bigfoot community, people who show evidence, people who throw out evidence. Most definitely, because if the government wasn't monitoring Bigfoot or the Bigfoot community, then they simply wouldn't be doing their jobs, and they wouldn't be doing their jobs good at all. So it is more than the fact that there are government officials in this Bigfoot community that are doing various things, It is almost certain because there's government almost in every single thing. In fact, there's documents and the CIA and different agencies' involvement in the church arena and churches and stuff, There's a bunch of stuff like that, infiltrating all sorts of different communities and stuff to monitor people and to monitor groups, especially, And the Bigfoot community and the paranormal, the UFO community. I mean, if you say there's government in the UFO community, I mean, no one would bat an eye. They would be, oh, yeah, of course. There's more government involvement with the cover up. But when you say, oh, there's government and Bigfoot stuff, all of a sudden people start scratching their eyes and scratching their heads and rubbing their eyes, getting all sleepy, like, okay. Well, I mean, why not? Isn't there government in the UFO community? I don't know. They have, hearings in the, Senate, congressional hearings about UFOs and UAPs and showing invisible UFOs that only appear on military thermal video, flying over military bases in the Middle East. Multiple eyewitness and whistleblowers coming out and testifying in front of congressional members about UFOs and government technologies, and clearly the government and military have encountered UFOs and these UAPs and are covering it up. But when you take out UFOs and UAPs and you insert Bigfoot, all of a sudden, it's like, nah. Oh, well, you hear these stories about the super agents and government and Delta Force, even above Delta Force, special ops people going hunting Bigfoot. Okay, sure. I typically don't believe those stories, but I actually have been getting another researcher Val Savala has been putting out a lot of good stuff, interesting stuff that is hinting at government involvement in search and rescue of missing people found in caves and all sorts of weird stuff. People attacked by Bigfoot, people attacked by these hairy wild men. Mentioned a couple times in these last few lives of 100 years ago here in Michigan of multiple different county sheriffs. It seems like we're going on the chase of these wild people and finding hunters dead in caves, and bare, huge, bare footprints cast, no shoes, nothing like that, showing something massive by these dead bodies or missing people or extreme weird circumstances. Seems like the public and sheriffs and the state itself was a little bit more talkative about these kind of matters. Now they certainly not talking about that kind of stuff in the newspapers 100 years later. So it is definitely it's definitely odd. There's a lot of missing people out there. There's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of weird stuff. There was like those two missing hunters that ended up dying, from exposure and stuff. They died overnight, kind of a thing. Both bodies are found together, which is weird because if it's a survival situation and, it's getting icy and snowing out and we're going to freeze to death, well, whoever typically would be the weaker person should theoretically freeze to death faster or succumb to the weather faster than the person who's a little bit stronger or stronger willed, who might be able to push on. Because if you're with someone and you're trying to survive in a survival situation, of course you're going to stay with your partner and stuff. But at a certain point, if they can't go any farther and stuff, what are you going to do? Stay there and die? Or are you going to try to go out and get help and survive, which is the only way that he's going to survive. If you get out and go and get help, if you stay there as you watch him die, or you watch him, slowly succumb, or, hours tick by and now all of a sudden you're going to be in the same situation if you don't build a shelter or if you don't simply get out, which in most situations and stuff, the human body, throughout history, there's various stories and circumstances of the pioneers settling across the U.S. succumbing to severe weather and stuff, but having survivors of, I can't remember the exact story. I will have to try to research it, but there was a young female who was basically barefooted in the snow and stuff and survived definitely overnight. And these guys are hunting and, have proper gear and boots and not proper enough. But it's weird and stuff that both bodies are found together because, again, if one is succumbing to the elements or has succumbed already, the other person is going to go farther and stuff. That they're not going to die right next to each other unless that's a choice to stay there together, which it does happen. But in most cases, the other person is going to need to get back to the vehicle or get back out to get help, get into cell phone reception range, all that, get help. So the other person can survive. There was another case here in Colorado I just seen. I saved it on my phone just a couple minutes before we went live, of two hunters in Colorado that went missing for 6 days. They just found them. The bodies are together. And they're concluding that it was due to severe weather and stuff, and that they weren't properly prepared and all their camping equipment was in the car. They were out elk hunting and I guess got it caught out too far, and the weather swept in really, really fast, and they succumb to the weather. That's what the article is basically saying and stuff. Is there a little bit more to it? I don't know. Again, usually when you got two people in an extreme weather situation, unless you're both hunkering down and trying to stay warm and you just both succumb, one person's usually going to succumb or want to sit down or rest. The other person has more endurance, more willpower to survive. They're going to go farther. They're not going to typically, you wouldn't find them together like that unless it's a choice. Typically you would see what happens on mountain climbing expeditions or on Everest and stuff is when one person is going down, especially on Everest, basically you have to go. You have to leave them and stuff. Otherwise, you're going to die. And there's a lot of bodies on Everest that they don't move. They can't move because the extreme climate, the extreme sheer exertion on your body doing the most simplest things, just breathing and surviving, let it alone actual physical tasks, does not work. So in a survival situation, you break your leg or you can't make it. One person is going to go out and get from help. The Indian air crash, where they had to eat the bodies. Someone made the choice. Well, I gotta get out of here. Got to go get help. Otherwise, eventually you're gonna run out of resources and die and stuff like that. Yeah, this is actual good discussion right here, if a YouTube allows it, because YouTube actually does blackmail you, mail you into not talking about certain topics, or they'll take you off the air or take away your money, so you're being bribed. Those little cocksuckers. Who are you who are scared to talk? Yeah, no, seriously, because I showed basic videos of some bear attacks that, and one video we did show a couple of times over the years. They get hammering me with a copyright claim and stuff, and by a channel that I know doesn't have the original video as theirs, and it's ridiculous. The next week, after I got that one all done, I didn't fight it and stuff. I basically cut it out, so it probably looks all janky in the live. I don't care. YouTube came after me again with the second bear video that we showed, and I thought it was because of the intro and stuff like that, and it wasn't. I did fight that. I gave a pretty good, even more good response to the first one, explaining the whole Bigfoot narrative and reasoning behind it, which is so stupid and stuff. And I did say, I'll go to court over this. This is so fucking stupid. I'll have it dismissed at the very least. And then this frivolous claims that YouTube brings towards you. It is not these channels that go out and put these claims on me or other people, small channels. It's YouTube's algorithm that, there's a problem. And then they tell you and they tell the other person, and they instigate, here's a claim, you should make this claim, and you'll get the monetization from this little video, and then I'll get the copyright claim against me, and in the meantime the monetization is pending, right? And there's this dispute and stuff, and it's a warning, it's a legal matter and stuff, so you have to use your full name, and it could be you could go to court for all this and stuff. It's YouTube's own policy that is actually erroneous. That's too much. It's not the actual copyright laws, because copyright laws is pretty defined and well known for a long time now. To make commentary or educational purposes, is the very least, is what we do. Is all we do basically, is the commentary of the video and translating it to the Bigfoot community, Bigfoot reasoning, and the educational purposes that, again, you transform the video from whatever I'm trying to show and transforming into the Bigfoot educational subject matter. That right there protects me from any copyright bullshit that YouTube tries to throw at me, and then throws at these other people to incite them to try to make this claim against me, because YouTube sees it. It's not like these videos are seeing it and say, hey, that's my video. It's YouTube's algorithm stuff that's making all these other people go head to head by soliciting a copyright claim. Say, hey, there's a potential claim here, a potential that we see against our policy. Not even, and then they say, well, the law, but YouTube's not going to be in the court against you. If you went to court, it'd be this other channel that YouTube solicited to make the claim against your channel. And I basically explained that, we'll take it all the way to the court, and then, we'll take it to YouTube, because if they're soliciting and doing these frivolous claims, that's not based on law. It's only based on their policy. Well, we'll take it to law, and then we can take matters in our own hands. because there's big channels all the time. That's all they do is commentary on all these other videos. They don't change up the video and add, I got to add a bunch of stickers and, cartoon things, which I can do. And I have, it just takes more time. I shouldn't have to do that. There's lots of big channels that do that. And they don't get striked. They don't get hassled. They don't have other channels being solicited to go after them by YouTube. It's the small channels that, doesn't have the view membership and the viewership to have the influence to say, or to deal with YouTube or not even be messed with YouTube. They only care. And it's kind of like what Bigfoot Truth is. They're only messing with you to try to push you a certain way or to fit you into this box instead of being able to talk about what you want. We cannot talk about any of the medical craziness, Looney Tunes stuff that happened 5 years ago and stuff with all the craziness that went on, wearing diapers over your face and stuff like that. Cannot talk about that at all. YouTube does not like that on my channel. They went after me, almost a half a year on stuff that didn't even matter and stuff. So they definitely are trying to push and influence small channels to not talk about certain stuff. You can't really talk about conspiracy theories or truths or anything like that on YouTube. You'll get shut down and your channel will actually get canceled. So, because I have dealt with that. I have dealt with that when we had shows. We talked about that kind of stuff. That's why I was a host with Emily on her show of the Beast System. We haven't done a show in a long time, stuff because of several reasons. But over there and on Rumble, you can say what you want about a lot of different stuff. You don't have to worry about getting canceled as you do on YouTube. And then this is another thing is I have definitely been like, what's it called? Shadow banned or whatever, where, people aren't getting my notifications. This is not the first time, 30 minutes late and stuff. It happens all the time with YouTube not giving people the pathway to reach me and stuff or to see me or notifications and stuff like that. And it's like, you hear it on a bunch of channels. They're getting messed with YouTube. Oh, you got to click that notification bell again or, unsubscribe and resubscribe bullshit. And it's like, that's not how this should work, kind of a thing. YouTube has been not liking and messing and doing these couple things, these frivolous claims for a while now. It's not really new, but the shadow banning kind of a thing is it's because I'll go live in the studio and I'll get a certain amount of numbers. Go live in the woods, get a whole different kind of number. And if I post on Facebook or if I don't post on Facebook, it really doesn't matter. I noticed it really doesn't. It doesn't change the viewership. If I post everywhere to like every single Facebook group I am in, it will help a little bit, but it doesn't feed the algorithm. It doesn't help. It doesn't help YouTube show more people to me and stuff, even my own subscribers. So it's a weird dealio. But we're going to keep trucking at it and stuff because it really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the views and all that and being subscribers because, people get locked into, I need to, make money and stuff. And you'll hear it. I want to be able to make a living off this. Off of what? telling stories or having some bullshit people on or selling your merchandise. And, I don't know. That's just a red flag because then you always need to come out with the next thing to make money, the next story, the next documentary, the next thing that doesn't have evidence in it, right? The next documentary that just has a bunch of people talking. And it's awesome, talking about their encounters and real or not real, but the evidence, there's no evidence in that. There's no evidence there. You guys didn't even do a night investigation. You guys didn't even go out anywhere. You went out, did some shots of a nice place that you could set up the camera without damaging it as you walk through the woods. And, it is what it is, People make money off, all sorts of stuff. But to hear it, I'm going to try to make a living off it. Well, how much of a living do you try to expect? I mean, if you have thousands and thousands of subscribers and you're putting out content every other day and stuff, you probably are making stuff. But what kind of quality is that? What substance is in these content that you're producing so vividly? What evidence is there of Bigfoot, Unfortunately, there's not much because even as researchers who go out as much as we do, it's not like shit happens all the time, every single day, There's weird stuff that happens, might add up a little bit, but it's not like, the real researchers, if I had shit happening every time I went out, I mean, I have that thermal. Something would be happening on that thermal, baby. You got all these people, they go out all the time, and Bigfoot's 20 feet from them, and it's named Greg. And it's gifting them. They're giving him M&Ms. And he's giving them fucking rocks. Twisted up grass and shit. Well, hey, if you got twisted up grass and stuff, maybe there's some DNA evidence on there, right? Some oils and what is this? What is this Bigfoot truth? What are you saying? Dude, get a clue. Steve Coles is behind the channel harassing you and flagging your videos. He's your friend, so he can fuck with you behind your back. No, it's not Steve Coles that's doing that. No. He's not fucking with me. Harassing my channel. No. I had Untold Radio mess with me because of the Freeman videos that I showed and the videos I showed of Michael Freeman's book that I purchased to show you guys. They got upset about that and they came after me. They actually came out after me and threw claims at me, and I did get a strike for that, and I had to take those videos down. But that was full commentary and stuff too. I think, well, I don't think I needed to transform the videos a little bit more and stuff, and I could and stuff, but once I post those, if I even transform those videos, I have a feeling they're just going to slap it on if they find out and stuff, Long story short, basically, I made a bunch of videos on Paul Freeman and different stuff that Paul Freeman and Jeff Meldrum and different people were saying, going back and forth with either Paul Freeman was a legit guy or he was faking the videos. And of course, the famous Freeman footage that we all know of is not the first Paul Freeman video footage of Bigfoot that he filmed. It's actually the second video footage. And we showed the very first video footage, which they also didn't like, and they had to get taken down. But the live shows that we did on all of those, showing those complete videos, they can't take down and they can't get a strike. I can't get a strike on because we did commentary and it was transformed enough that YouTube won't let them. So they're kind of pissy about that. But the videos that I uploaded that weren't live and stuff, those had to be taken down. They had a bitch fit about it and YouTube agreed with them. And I didn't feel like, dealing with that, So So you can watch it through the live show. I think me and Brent did a live reaction on the baby Bigfoot in the Paul Freeman video and all this, and the book and all that. We showed this and the links that took you to all these videos and all this stuff. On the live show that I did, you could go to Untold Radios or Hanger Publishing, whatever the fuck publishing bullshit it is. You could go to the website and you could go and click on the Freeman stuff. You can click on every single link that was in the book for free publicly. So I don't know why, certain someone got all mad I was showing his book and everything was public anyways. But so yeah, I have been gone after by people and I won't be afraid to tell who it is, but I don't think Steve Coles is one of them. So, but Steve Coles was talking about Robert Kreider and posting that around, giving his opinion. I mean, some people would say, that was trying to smear Robert Kreider's name in the dirt. Other people would say Robert Kreider's post was himself smearing his own name into the dirt. So, whatever. And then, Steve, I think, went after Mr. Duffy and, I don't know, someone else or something else. I usually am listening and doing other stuff at the same time, so sometimes I don't hear specific names and I don't feel like going back, but that's an interesting opinion that you have. Unless I said it's an interesting opinion that you have. Yeah, no, there is censorship, even off YouTube, with the Bigfoot stuff, because you see it in media and stuff. They talk about Bigfoot and it's a joke, ha ha ha. It's fake. You're Looney Tune. It's not real. And then people are out camping and you got these things actually running around terrorizing average people who've never encountered Bigfoot, never thought about it, other than a subcultural, something vague off the fringes of their mind, not like us, where it's like in every other day, topic or thought. When they encounter Sasquatch, it could be very traumatizing and life-changing, where they actually don't want to ever talk about it or don't ever want to go in the woods and stuff again or hunt again, like what Kerry Arnold had. He was a pretty big guy, and to be scared out of the woods like that, and to see him in the woods on the 168 physically, under anxiety and scared to go into the brush, into these woods off trail and stuff, because obviously he encountered something that's scaring him that much, clearly that there's a physical sign to that. And so, you have the media laughing and, portraying, anytime anyone goes to the news with a story about Bigfoot's laughing matter, it's a joke, it's a very real concern that those people, why would they come out and stuff? And we know through Operation Mockingbird that the media and stuff is not truthful and stuff, and is monitored and censored, and there are government officials in there because the government documents say it. I mean, all you gotta do is read and know what to look up on Google. I mean, but so when they laugh and they try to shove all this stuff under the rug, what is the reasoning behind that? Because yeah, it doesn't really matter that they are doing it and stuff, but the reason is, why are they doing it? That's the real mystery. It's why the censorship, why the cover up, why. And if you look at other paranormal or fringe kind of or the woo side, what we would say the woo side, which is anything from paranormal, basically non-physical animal, kind of a primate species, anything that's more spiritual, magical, that whole side is woo. But there's a lot of people, that would say, the government's, the same reason why the government is covering up aliens is the same reason it covers up Bigfoot, is Bigfoot's an alien, or it's in that same category of these entities, right? Some people would call these entities otherworldly or other dimensional. Some people would call these demonic entities and stuff. And when you go down that rabbit hole and stuff, there are a couple of different pointers and stuff. First one that a lot of people assume and like to point out is, well, they're the Nephilim giants and stuff. They're Nephilim, uh, uh, diluted bloodline of the Nephilim that are surviving remnants and stuff. And that's why we have all these wild man stories from around the world, which technically that is where you would have all those wild man stories. At least that's what, from the Bible's point of view and stuff. It talks about the men of renown, the men of old and stuff, being these giants, these Nephilim and Raphaim and these otherworldly giants and stuff. But most certainly thing, even if you don't rely on the Bible or take it seriously, almost every culture in the world has stories of wild men, but also of giants and stuff. And giants are never really depicted as being good or anything that is benign to them. They are usually have an insatiable hunger and an appetite for human flesh, almost in every culture and stuff. They even, Jack the Beanstalk, he's, make the bread out of the bones and stuff of Jack or whoever else he eats and stuff. A very key ingredient to that story. And if you look at like the Book of Enoch, and there's other historical texts and of these giants, these very old, even older stories that of these giants that were bloodthirsty and eating everything, eating humans, eating themselves. That's why the flood happened, and he had this Nephilim diluted bloodline. And basically, long story short, the angels came down, bad angels came down, mated with human women, made these Nephilim giant offsprings. The interesting thing is that the Bible and the Book of Enoch says, especially the Book of Enoch, actually talks about that when these giants died and stuff, they became the demonic spirits that roam around the earth, that we would know as demons or poltergeists and stuff, these disembodied spirits upon the earth. That is what they became when they died. They didn't go to heaven. They didn't go to hell. They didn't have a resting place. They were relentlessly wandering the earth as disembodied spirits. And that is what it is referred to, what happened to them when they die. So some people think, that aliens are, the spirits and principalities of the air and stuff. You have demons that live underground and giants that are still remnants. I think it was the Book of Giants or in Enoch and stuff. One of the giants, presumably, some people think it's Gilgamesh. Other people think it's some other giant king or leader. Basically talks about that the giant civilization, has been destroyed and stuff by God, and that they will, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this because I don't have the text in front of me and stuff, but they basically, the key thing is now that they will have to live as wild men and live in the woods, in the wild, like wild men, savages, basically uncivilized compared to their empire that has now been destroyed. And so you have a reference to wild men, and typically wild men are depicted as giants and stuff. So the theory, that the giants that once were technologically advanced, the super race of giants, the technological advanced Atlantis kind of a thing, got destroyed and had to live in the like savages and barbarians in the woods, and became savages and became wild men and became what we would know as like a modern day Bigfoot, a wild man, a creature, a giant, something that isn't human, that looks human and stuff, covered with hair and stuff, a troglodyte from an era forgotten and stuff, kind of a thing. And of course, they're related to the ghosts and the evil spirits and stuff and the aliens. And you all have a very circular combination of things that happen in all of those arenas where you have camera malfunctions and stuff, like interference that happens with ghosts and stuff, and it happens in the Bigfoot world, and it happens with the UFO stuff, right? You have ghosts appearing and disappearing and stuff, UFOs appearing and disappearing, and some people would say Bigfoot appears and disappears through portals or through trees or whatever. Very common similarities through different types of phenomenons and entities and total backgrounds that they should naturally have, even if they're alien or spiritual, or you have a big monkey man running around, right? That's three separate origins, and they should all be separate. But there's a lot of similarities that come into the mix. Some people would say, it's because they are related, even though they are different. So, that's a very dark kind of a thing. Apparently, I seen this on a little clip. It was the guy from the confessionals talking about the Beast of Bray Road, which was a dog man. Apparently, when that was first sighted, and I have to try to confirm this too because I haven't heard this. Apparently, the dog man said something to the eyewitness that sounded like Golgotha, which biblically was the place where Jesus went over across the sea to confront the demon-possessed man in Golgotha, who was a demon-possessed man who was living in the tombs of the dead. And the Beast of Bray Road, that particular sighting at least, was in a graveyard, the place of the dead. And he said Golgotha, which some people link to that story, right? There is a newspaper reporting from Indiana from about 100 years ago of basically a Bigfoot-like creature ransacking graves and stuff and scattering the bones around, and actually made a den home in one of the graves. And I was thinking, why that doesn't really make sense. Why would a Bigfoot dig a den and actually live in this den for a couple of days to however long until the townspeople, are gathering around and people are seeing this thing and people are trying to confront this thing? Why would it make a den inside the graveyard of basically a suburban area at that time of the early 1900s and stuff? That really doesn't make any sense logically or strategically. I mean, it wasn't even reported that it was eating the bones or anything. It was scattering, digging the graves up and scattering the bones around and stuff. And apparently it had made a den in one of the grave sites and stuff. So, it's very odd and stuff, and it could be related to this evil, this demon kind of thing, these disembodied spirits, or this living giant who, why would it make its home in the tomb? Why would the Beast of Bray Road reference the place where the demon-possessed man lives in the tomb of the dead, of the undead, like the Bigfoot affinity with graveyards and kind of a thing. So, I'm just putting it out there because there are people who believe that kind of thing. And, there's some weird stuff, with Bigfoot having all these magical powers and this and that. It would fall into that realm more likely, in my opinion, than being a magical, good creature of the woods that is, a good Samaritan of the woods. It really seems, with everything else that's happening in the world and the darkness, and you really want to talk about ancient cults and ancient religions and pagan religions and conspiracy theories about that, a lot of that points to what we hear and read in the Bible being true and stuff. These whole other aspects of these giants, these spirits, and these wild men and aliens and off like that, would more likely fall into that category than them being, friendly forest creatures or happily magical, friendly aliens or things like that. I mean, why do aliens need to abduct people if they're so technologically advanced? How many times do they need to abduct a person before they figure out the anatomy, or the probing? And it's like, how many times do they need to figure that out, right? Uh, the cow mutilations and stuff like that, an advanced, super advanced, technologically advanced alien race. How many times do they need to probe a cow or mutilate a cow or do crop circles and stuff, right? To figure out what's going on. So I hope it's not, but you don't have in ancient times, the lost cryptids, the lost ones, they had names. They had mythological names to Bigfoot and dragons and every other creatures and weird things that they were saying, and we've forgotten. And in fact, humans have forgotten most of their history. Actually, most of human history is long forgotten. Hasn't been written down, and many of the stories have forgotten. But simply, we've forgotten recent ancient history and stuff. We can't figure out stuff. Ancient mysteries of the Baalbek, Göbekli Tepe, huge, unfathomable amounts of weight that already carved in stone, ready to be transported. Yet we can't do that in modern times. There was a lot of stuff going on, a lot of weird stuff they don't want you to know about. Statues and stuff from Egypt and other places that supposedly are missing, when you look at their digits and stuff, where there would be a potential sixth digit of the Nephilim bloodline, they're broken off. There's a missing toe. There's toes broken off. There's noses broken off. There's fingers missing. They have all 5 fingers, but there's a finger missing where there's the 6th one and stuff. And that's where you get into this, the Bible says, the ancient men of renown, like Hercules, mythological figures, they were these demigods, which the Greeks said they were demigods. They were the sons of gods and stuff, the sons of angels and stuff. They were Nephilim giants and stuff, men of renown. Ancient old kings and famous mythological stories are based off of these demigods, which they were. These magical powers, all these magical lost treasures, and special ancient technological devices and stuff. There's a lot of that weird stuff all across the world of ancient lost civilizations or the ancient Gargotha or Shangri-La. Shangri-La is in the Himalayas of and is ancient paradise and stuff of a potential other race of people or advanced human civilization and stuff that you can't find, that's hidden in and underneath passage of this particular mountain of the Himalayas that's vastly, inaccessible. You have Golgotha, which is an Eastern, a more European version of that, in the lost north and stuff. You have South American versions of that. You have Admiral Larry Bird's testimony during World War II and stuff of flying his aircraft into the North Pole, into the earth of the North Pole, and coming across this Golgotha or ancient super civilization and stuff that's under the earth, like these stories of Golgotha or Shangri-La and stuff. And then he flew to the South Pole and supposedly went under there, and there was another one civilization under there and stuff. That's supposedly why you have Antarctica heavily censored and stuff. You're not allowed to go there and stuff. We know that the Nazis had operations there. The U.S. had a military operation there. It's drawing a blank what the operation is called, but they do have film footage of the aftermath that shows the boats and planes getting they are fucked up. They got into a fight with something, but what? Well, we're not sure. But they have video of that freaking ship is smoking, like it gets smacked with something. with the what kind of battle took place in Antarctica, Yeah, there's certain topics that are heavily censored and other topics that are laughably not censored and stuff. So, it does kind of play into that because they don't censor you if you're not onto something or close to something, The enemy doesn't shoot, the flat cannons at you if you're not flying above the target, right? Ready to drop your payload or discover the truth. And whatever the truth is, the Bigfoot community, as we know it, clearly we're nowhere near knowing the answer to, like, the fully understandings of why the government is censoring it, but we are close enough to discover some kind of truth or exposing it at the very least, getting it on camera. But the full understanding and stuff, I'm guessing that we are like maybe a paragraph on one page of a book of information that the government probably knows, or just the very least should know if they were doing their job properly. And if they were doing their job properly, because people do report Bigfoot and sightings and encounters and stuff to government all the time, and I'm sure there are killings and there's conflict, because there's conflict with every other creature on this planet, with humans, with whatever situation, hunting situation, the destruction of the forest, farming and stuff. There's encounters, there's conflict with animals. It happens. Why wouldn't there be a conflict with Bigfoot? I mean, there's supposedly conflict with aliens. There's whistleblowers that come out all the time about UFO battles, or this happened and that, or I believe in the medieval period somewhere there was a couple paintings and stuff and stories of the people. I think it was over in Germany, of a UFO battle in the skies, and they have all these pictures of these alien UFO aircraft shooting each other, blowing each other up, in this big battle that happened over this European town, which is pretty weird, So, there is documentation and stuff, but now again, our civilian information compared to the government's information is just a drop in the bucket, really. So there must be a very interesting or good reason why they have it classified. Or maybe there's not really a good reason and they're just incompetent, and so they just want to keep it classified. It could be simple as people's panic. Even if it's a natural blood creature, people panic. We've had issues and conflicts with wolves, and their stereotype of wolves and stereotype of bears and cougars and big cats. Even though statistically you're really not likely to get attacked by a cougar or really get killed by a cougar in North America or America itself. But, the perception is a much greater fear and can cause much greater conflict for the government than those simple realities. So maybe that is that the perception of this Bigfoot creature that lives close to everyone's homes and stuff is going to have a much greater impact to the government and society and control, really, than what the actual creature is actually causing and stuff. Because if the creature was actually mindlessly killing people and murdering and eating everything in sight, you would have a towns attacked. You would have a lot more people missing. You would have videos of it. There are a lot more people who would have shot this thing. There would be a lot more people coming out of the woodworks with these conflict and stuff. And there are a lot of reports of that. You can find those in Val Savala's group on Facebook. The Gumshoe Guys Corner, Michigan Bigfoot Sightings and Reports. In my opinion, there are a lot of good information. In my opinion, there are, unfortunately, a lot of suspected AI photographs and stuff that are being posted there that, I'm not a video forensic analysis, so it's not like I can give you that. But it seems like that kind of opinion would matter a lot more if someone had that kind of background to filter out some of that stuff that's going into that group, because that is the most unfortunate thing in my opinion. What's going on in that group. But regardless, there's other information and data that is spot on, point to point, that is the best around, that you're never going to find anywhere else. So go check that out there, because there are lots of reports of active conflicts and gunfire and slapping and harassment, watching people through houses, actively more aggressive stuff than you would actually hear about online or on YouTube. I'm gonna put my email on, and I notice also that no one's coming on. This is a chill stream hangout. I was hoping to have at least someone jump on and stuff. There's links to jump on and stuff. I'm gonna put the link for my email in the chat also, because it was asked for, and if people want to reach out and all stuff like that, send me evidence, a link for evidence and stuff like that. All right, I gotta reach. I'm not reading the chat and stuff. I got to catch up a little bit in case there's some interesting questions or whatever or whatnot. But I do appreciate the couple people who are watching and stuff right now. And here on this channel, if you look at the comments and stuff, I don't really, I allow free speech on this platform, whether you kind of like it or not. There are obviously going to be certain things that I'm not going to tolerate and or will allow. But for the most part, people are going to say what they want, and they should have the freedom to say and express themselves how they want. And if you don't like it, then you can form your opinion about that person, about what they say and stuff. But for someone to say, hey, I should ban this person, or I should get rid of this person, or for what they say, I mean, it needs to be a little bit more. And that doesn't mean that I'm condoning what they're saying, or I'm condoning their actions, or I'm giving them platforms and stuff. I mean, if you're so weak-minded that you can't handle what words people say and stuff, then you shouldn't be going out in the woods looking for Bigfoot, because you're not going to be able to handle that actual situation. I'm just going to say it right now. That's my opinion, because I've been in those situations, and words are nothing compared to having these guys around you. And then the thoughts in your head are, these guys are going to tackle me and start eating me before I'm fucking dead. That's a scary thought that you should have in the woods when you're by yourself, right? Because that actually does go through my mind when I'm by myself. Unfortunately, it happens. It's just a natural thing. It's like, man, I'm alone. Some big scary animal could come out and devour me. That's a natural instinct that you have to get over. Getting the woolies, getting the willies and stuff after dark, and getting spooked and stuff, right? Getting spooked. You got to get over that. That's all mindset. Just like words. You're hearing words and stuff from people saying online, and you're getting so flustered and frustrated and blah, 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 blah. Why? Especially from some stranger who you've never met, you don't know, and you would especially say you don't care about. I always find that kind of laughable. But all right. Anyways, back. Those are interesting. That is an interesting rabbit hole to go down, especially the original card set that came out quite a while ago. Actually, has some pretty interesting stuff that maybe it's just pattern recognition and people trying to connect dots, but pretty interesting stuff. If you guys look into that. I have no idea what that is about. I actually watched Travis Carpenter Yeah, Travis Carpenter, I believe. Yeah. He was on a show with Abnormal Investigation. They talked about quite a few different stuff. It actually was a pretty good show, full of information. I've actually not watched the Travis a whole bunch, so it was actually pretty good to listen to that firsthand. And he does, and Scott was the same way. His father, they lean towards that more religious side of the Bigfoot situation and topic, of these Nephilim giants, kind of a thing. And he, in my opinion, seems a very good, respectable kind of a guy. So I'm not really sure what you're talking about. What kind of rampage, and why putting himself on camera too much would be a bad thing. Anyways. Yes, I think there's a number of people who would agree that Cabin in the Woods is the biggest new faker. It's funny, He, again, I think he was a homesteader guy, right? Doing homestead videos, doing good, having a great audience, as you would say, subscriber count base. All of a sudden, he slaps a Bigfoot sticker on it, bam, and the viewers and money shoots up to the point to where now he just slaps that sticker on all the time. Slap that baby on. That is a problem because that's all about money and making money. It's very little truth. It's just slap the sticker on. It doesn't fucking matter what the content is. Doesn't matter who the source is. Doesn't matter if you vet the source and stuff. And then we see this a lot with Untold Radio does it. When they have on their main show with their main guy, they have Squatch Watchers on there, hoaxers. You can't take it seriously and stuff. Either there's no vetting going on, or it doesn't matter, and it only matters about getting that view count, that monetization, as many people watching because hey, you're kind of famous. Come on the show, tell me your story, because that matters more than integrity. Because there's been several researchers, including myself, who have pointed out Squatch Watchers and the most hilariously stupid hoaxes on the entire internet or Bigfoot community at the very least. The most stupidest hoax that you could try to pull off. We have exposed, and yet to get the full ride on Untold Radio with the big man himself hosting it. To me, it's all about money. That's all about money. Because if you paid attention and vetted, you would notice, hey, there's a few content creators showing these guys being so goofy that they will film themselves picking up a fucking rock, throwing that rock up the fucking hill, watching that rock roll down the hill, look back at their buddies, and then the caption and the description is, did a Bigfoot try to distract us? The guy is filming himself. He picks up the rock. You see the camera do the shaking motion. You see him throw it. You see it whizzing through the fucking trees. At a certain point, integrity needs to come back into fashion, and not views and subscribers and making money and slapping that Bigfoot sticker on it. Oh, you guys have a Bigfoot story? I don't care if you guys have integrity. I don't care if you're hoaxing or not. Let's just come on down. I thought Doug Hychek, at the very least, was a credible source you're supposed to send your evidence to. But he can't vet these bimbos. I should say his son probably didn't vet them because he's probably the one who got him on. That's how long ago it was, because his son was the co-host back then too. But to me, it's a joke and stuff. So I think that's what matters most, because evidence isn't easy to come by, and having a bimbo tell your story is easy to come by, and you can come on and you make a lot more money because that's more, that's easier to do. It's easier to do. That's my problem stuff. There's too many people trying to make money, too many people who has all these bullshit stories, and too many people who just don't care, and they will let them come on their show and freely talk about the goofiest fucking shit ever. have the goofiest video evidence ever, and say, yeah, wow, that looks like Bigfoot. That looks like a dog man. That looks like a dog man from LBL on Thermal. That was on the Untold Show radio show with Spencer Jameson. Yeah, it looked like a dog man that you guys filmed for 20 fucking minutes because it's a fucking deer with a long snout and the ears up. And I'll let you guys know, deer, even though they have eyes on the side of their fucking head, when you look through a night vision camera or whatever, it looks like the eyes are in face fronting because their eyes are so big and it reflects the light, especially, or even on a thermal, it looks like there's some big eye sockets there. Oh, it looks like a dog man. It's because it's a deer, guys. That's probably why it stood there for 20 minutes and casually walked off like a deer does, because they're kind of stupid like that. They'll just stare at you because they think that you can't see it. Oh, you guys don't like the way I put it? Well, how should we break it to them? Should we break it easy to them and try to explain that, yeah, this is a deer, guys, and have them frothing at the mouth that, oh, no, it's a fucking dog, man, because we were there? What's more simpler? To drive down the road and spot a deer with thermal on the side of the road and then film it for 20 minutes standing there like deer do before nonchalantly walking off, or to drive by and see a dog man fucking standing there that you film for 20 minutes without it moving, and then it nonchalantly walks away. And people, and they went back and they did a height comparison and all this and found tracks supposedly. I'm sorry, those people don't look like they're physically able to get off the fucking couch enough to be able to go out there and, in my opinion, be credible enough and not living in this fantasy world, but that they're we should take them seriously, because in my opinion they live in this fantasy world. That was one example that I find laughable, that people take it seriously, and it's on the Untold Radio Network, so it must be legit and stuff. Or they take it seriously, they vet it, blah 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 blah, whatever. I'm just saying that is big, and I'm going to be on one of those shows. Maybe, I don't know. I might get canceled, but as of now, I'm supposed to be doing a show on one of those. The channel I like with Barnaby. And but anyways, once you have a plan and a format and a whole network of shows running all the time to make that money, it doesn't matter about the integrity and quality of the research that you have on. You need to have as many people on all of those shows as much as possible, all of the time, to make as much money as you can. It doesn't matter what the fuck bullshit story they tell. Just have more people on. Okay, cool. Bullshit story. Well, on to the next. Hopefully we'll forget about this one. On to the next. Let's get more people. And it's all for monetary gain. And then, you ask the public for another, $100,000 for a documentary. And all this stuff and ideas for this documentary about scientific Bigfoot research, but you have all these pre-planned ideas that, I don't know, if you already had the evidence, you already had a bunch of stuff, you think it'd all be lined up, ready to go, instead of you have to go out and try to produce some evidence. Kind of, well, if I had $90,000, I probably could go out and produce some shit too. That's a pretty good incentive to get your ass out in the woods and produce something. Especially if you had $90,000, you need to produce a documentary, and it needs to be good. There might be a number two. I mean, you might produce something. You might find something. That's kind of the incentive to find something, right? I don't know, man. I don't know. So it's a little weird, It's a little weird, asking for that much money and we're gonna have a good scientific thing on Bigfoot. Might be some evidence. Might find some stuff. Might find some stuff. I mean, if you were using the money and had integrity and stuff, yeah, you could use that to find some stuff. But it seems like people are just money hungry nowadays. Texas Jack says, I always think about Carrie when it comes to quitting your job to YouTube time. He'd still be here if he had done that when he first said he wanted to instead of staying a little longer. Yeah, Carrie was the one of the guys who said he wanted to do it. And he was basically one of the only guys that I personally met, but that I took seriously enough that even though he said that, he still had integrity enough to do what was right or do right by all of us, which was exposing and telling the truth. Because I was out there with them and stuff, and he did care about the evidence and trying to, in his opinion, in his own perception and stuff, what he was seeing in Florida, what they were getting in Florida, and what was caught on the 168 was legitimate and stuff and real, and he was trying to put it out there. And yeah, he wanted to quit his job and make money off YouTube and go do that full time. And like Texas Jack, it maybe things would have been different and stuff, but it's not easy, especially when you're trying to do it the more legitimate way, which I think Carrie was trying to do, which was actually go out in the field and try to get evidence, have huge expeditions with a bunch of researchers across the U.S. and try to get evidence and stuff. It wasn't, he did do the Shutter story and stuff too, but, he ended up really stopping and then not really doing that because, again, it's too much time and stuff too, but also, it wasn't the same as, stories and story channels and stuff, like Dixie Cryptids, which Carrie propped up and stuff, has, over the years come out that a story is a story. And if it sounds good, it sounds good. It's good enough for him. I don't think that was good enough for Carrie, in my opinion, not like I talked to him every day or was behind the scenes, but when we were out there on the 168, it was nothing trying to be faked about that, or we're gonna embellish stuff or exaggerate anything that was happening. No, none of that happened. It was never a thing. The only thing that was pre-planned and set up was the interviews for the documentary, which I gave interviews for. That was the only thing that we kind of had a pre-planned thing of, okay, we're gonna do that and have this shot set up. Other than this fake camp that was set up, that was a pre-planned thing, or we're gonna go to these areas and look or do a night investigation or go there in the morning type of thing. But there was never, react to something crazy going on that's not really happening that you would find in these documentaries or oh my God, what was that? What was that? What was that? Every 5 minutes. That never happened. Luckily, all the people were seriously enough that no one was trying to fake anyone else out, to my knowledge and from my experience being with those people that I was with out in the field. Although I did discover that some of those people are fake and full of shit and presented to be more knowledgeable and savvy in the woods than what they showed and what they are. And we've talked about those people before. Hell, fuck, I'll say it. Sawdust Beast, guys. And I don't know I don't think they're still doing a show or half retired, and I don't know. I haven't seen anything. I haven't looked up. I don't know. But I thought they were full of shit. So that's my opinion. You can watch on the shows that I exposed them hoaxing and, in my opinion, hoaxing and covering up for other people's hoaxing and collaborating, things like that. Exaggerating stuff that's happening. I was taking a piss. There was stuff all going on. I was I know it. And I finish up and, just bullshit. Bullshit. It's been a while. But what use does it really do? Uh, I'm a small channel. It's not like everyone watches me. That you stand on this podium and you shout all day like, "Oh, these fucking people are hoaxes," and you can prove it and you show it and you use their own words that they say that is different from this other words that they say from the same exact story that they're presenting. It's two different stories, two different things that happen, and you showing all this stuff, and people really don't care. It's like, well, they're really nice. They're really nice to me, so I'm going to believe their story, even though you show video evidence of them lying and completely backpedaling and all this. To the people who are in the cult, they're going to stay in the cult, and that goes with all of them. Pat is, whether you're Todd Standing's cult, whether you're the Sasquatch Ontario cult, whether you're Sawdust Beast cult, or wherever you find yourself, there's a lot of people out there with fake ass people. Jameson Spencer got his start with Sawdust Beast, and in fact, his very first audio evidence that Jameson put out there as real Bigfoot, I think is fake. Full out hoax, fake. And from what I've researched back in the day, was only posted once and only talked about once, a couple times on the show, and that's it. Pushed underneath the rug and never talked about it again. And his first couple tracks that he found too, kind of slid underneath the rug, kind of a thing. Now he has his own show on Untold Radio. So, hey, all you need to do is talk good, network with friends, become buddies with people, and then all of a sudden, you too can be a host on Untold Network Radio, as long as you agree to whatever stipulation and rule set they have, because I'm sure you're not allowed to say whatever the fuck you want to say on your show. Anyways, that's probably enough about that, I guess. Kind of going on a little rant about there, but I don't like it. I don't like people being just disingenuous and bullshit, hoaxing, and trying to make money off of genuine people who are just thirsty for knowledge, and also giving researchers bad name and no integrity. The no integrity thing, it really just irks me, man, because it's like, can't trust you. I could trust you that you'll be in it to make money, but I can't trust you to, when it comes to legit shit. How you can always be bought and bribed with money. You can always be swayed with money. And if money is all that matters, why wouldn't and why couldn't the government come in and bribe you to say what they want you to say? If money is all that matters, right? And integrity doesn't matter, and just saying, why wouldn't that bribe matter? Why wouldn't you take it? Trying to make money off everything else. I made that up. I just made that up because it's it could be any random bimbo. Again, you could fit a whole bunch of people into that category. That's why it's funny. It's um. Texas Jack says Doug is hard to read, pigeonhole. He's done good work with Legend Meets Science, but he is also a TV producer and showman at the end of the day, and that is what I basically am pointing out with his Untold Radio Network shows and the people that he has on his very own show. At the very end of the day, there has been quite a few different people whose stories are just complete bullshit. I mean, I'm sure Doug can't even believe the bullshit that some of these people have said. You shake your head, yes. Mm-hmm. Ask those questions like it really happened, because at the end of the day, making that money matters. Having in my opinion, that's what I see. And there's other people who give the same opinion. I've had that opinion, especially since the Squatch Watchers were on, because I mean, if you watched most of their video evidence. I mean, they're having a fucking owl, a barred owl, making vocalizations at him, and they're like a Bigfoot's screaming them out of the territory, fucking kind of a thing. You know, they have a coyote making a simple, basic coyote call and yipping. All of a sudden, it's a daytime Sasquatch fucking screaming at us. Who is taking them seriously enough? Well, the people who, you know, don't, I guess, see the details, but that could be the average TV viewer. That's fine. I don't expect them to dive into the details and look at the video evidence like supposedly Doug Hychek is supposed to do with the stuff you're supposed to send him, right? Doesn't he have a huge questionnaire list of stuff you need to answer, whether before he even looks at your fucking evidence, right? But, you know, he doesn't vet the people on the shows the same way. Because if you looked at Sasquatch Watchers, bro, I get it. I get it. I get it. You know, hey, I don't know. I've never had that much money. I've never been swayed and influenced by that much money. I guess I don't have a, you know, big boat I got to pay for and stuff, you know. So I guess, you know, trying to shovel as much fucking money into my fucking pants as I can, to be able to pay for these things and all this. I guess, you know, it's not as big as an influence on me in my decisions to just have every piece of low life guy with a story on the channel to make money. I mean, I don't know. It just seems sleazy and no integrity. So when you know, he has a documentary on science and all this, it's like, I don't know, man. I don't know. He only started making and working on the documentary after he got all this money that he had to publicly ask for. I mean, you would think if you had evidence and all this already ready to go, you could show people and have people put in money already because they know, oh my gosh. So you don't have anything to make a documentary about other than the stuff that's already known and already out there, in my opinion. Or, you know, hey, if you guys give me $90,000, I'll show you my best evidence. Is that what's going on? I don't know. Anyways, it's just more TV entertainment, in my opinion. Yeah. Because if you had the evidence, you know, you could get sponsors and it could get self-funding, but I'll show you my best evidence for $90,000 too, guys. Or I'll go find the best evidence. Guaranteed. Wink, wink. Oh, okay. The group called The Tall One says Paul Freeman's a faker. These guys need to be kicked out in the balls. I actually think Paul Freeman is kind of like a mixture. I think he is full of shit. 100%. He's full of shit about a number of things that he's said. In fact, his last interview that he gives, it's very crappy audio, which you can find publicly, where you used to be able to on Untold Radio before they got all butthurt that I showed it publicly. You can find this. You can actually find this interview on other channels on YouTube. But in the last interview that Paul Freeman gave, he was asked, "Have you ever tried to trap Bigfoot?" And his response was, "Yeah, I've dug a 20-foot hole in the ground to try to trap Bigfoot, but it's like they watched me and always know." I'm sorry. I'm gonna put it pretty bluntly. I don't think that fat fuck could have ever dug a 20-foot fucking hole in his life, especially on government land. You know, that the whole watershed area. He's not doing it on federal land. He's not doing it in the national forest. He's not going to do it on state land. You go dig a 20-foot hole on some government land and you go see what happens. And then you go say, yeah, I been trapping Bigfoot, been digging these big old holes. To me, that was a bold-faced fucking lie. Paul Freeman lied. That's a good, clear example of him being a bullshit. On the spot. Lying because he just, whatever. Didn't have to lie. Wanted to. Exaggerating stuff. Did he encounter Bigfoot? Did he possibly film Bigfoot? I would like to believe, but there's a lot of different stuff that comes out of his fucking mouth, and the way his son cares more about money and protecting that book than, freely trying to defend his dad openly without being behind a paywall. To me, kind of screams fakery, bullshit. The older brother doesn't talk, doesn't give interviews about his Bigfoot encounter or story. Maybe he was the one that was in a Bigfoot costume. I don't know. We've talked about it with the Paul Freeman live series that we did, and we showed the footage. We showed all these different stuff. Michael Freeman's book. We didn't show all of it. Showed some of it, even though he got all bitchy about showing his book, showing the whole book. It just screams it's not legitimate. There's no integrity in it. If there was a legitimate sighting or the legitimate video, it almost doesn't matter because there's no integrity for the foundation to be laid upon. So it almost doesn't matter. It's like when he does it's like you see the Paul Freeman footage, the famous one, and you hear that story. Well, there's a second part to that where, those Bigfoots chased him or scared him enough that he had to hunker down and was, scared to move out of that area after filming them, that you don't really hear about too often. But supposedly, that's what happened because Paul Freeman said it happened on one particular time. But never goes into it all the other times he talks about the story. So we've shown that. We've gone back and forth. Again, I've shown some stuff that's seems fakery, and then some other stuff that kind of shows him to be legitimate, like Jeff Meldrum finding the trackways next to Paul Freeman, and then the Rangers coming out and saying, oh, well, they only went a couple steps and then were completely gone and they're fake. The Rangers coming out, and then Jeff Meldrum saying, well, no, those tracks extended. And in fact, another assistant tracked the tracks for miles. So which is it? Is it Paul Freeman's side with Jeff Meldrum there looking at these tracks and another associate who followed those tracks for miles? Or is it the government officials, these Rangers, government official side, who said the tracks only went a couple feet and disappeared? That was a pretty interesting discussion that we showed and looked at, showing both sides that it's like, I don't know. I kind of want to believe the Bigfoot researcher side and Paul Freeman that these tracks actually did go for like a mile, and that these Rangers, the professional tracker, is not being genuine, saying, well, they didn't go a couple miles, they only lasted a couple feet, and they were fake and laughable. So which is it, But with all this other stuff coming on Paul, I think there was something that legitimately happened to Paul, but then he tried to stay famous in that limelight, and like what we see now, that content creation, you got to keep coming up with something to stay relevant. If that matters to you, if you don't have integrity and all you care about is the analytics and the subscriber count and the views and all that. And I think that's what happened to Paul. I don't think Steve Coles is jealous that Robert Kreider was making money and he does not, or whatever. I mean, for one, Robert Kreider sells equipment, Bigfoot researching equipment, and Steve Coles does not. So, I mean, if he was jealous and really wanted to do something about it, he could do that. But no, Steve had the show talking about Robert Kreider's post because he got upset by Robert Kreider's Woods over Jeff Meldrum and stuff, and had such disdain for it that he made a show about it, made a whole blog post about it, and proceeded to post with his own opinion and well, go after Kreider and post it to all these Facebook groups that you can find. Kind of trying to throw some dirt on Kreider, although some people would say that Robert dug the hole himself and put himself in the hole. So, so that answers that question. I know who you are, Mister. I know who you are, Bigfoot Truth. Steve Coles actually said some interesting stuff about you. Said basically you're violent and you'd have to watch it and stuff. Violent and paraphrasing and put my own little spin on it. Basically, a mindless, violent troll kind of a thing who makes threats, veil threats. You threaten someone or something like that, or some bullshit or whatever. Some people would consider you, that was a threat and all this and all that, and some people it's like, okay, come on, guys. I don't know. You've rubbed a lot of people the wrong way too, Mr. Duffy. So that could be a little bit of why you were called out too. But hey, you got some radical opinions and some hot words to use. I mean, people don't like it, then they block them. Okay, well, problem solved, I guess, right? So we're almost at 2 hours and stuff. Wow, this show is actually kind of flying by. I will have to admit, I woke up from this nap at 8 o'clock, and I was like, almost not feeling it. I was like, man, it wasn't a long week, but it kind of was. I mean, intense. I would say this work was a little bit more intensive and stress inducing, being up in a tree climbing. And the other day there was a lot of work inside a small fenced in backyard, throwing stuff over a fence and dragging, and no machinery, and climbing and stuff, climbing up fucking 40 foot, setting your line up, climbing back down, doing tree work, climbing up this super dead maple that's like fucking thick. No thicker than that, which it wasn't supposed to climb. But when the line, you're up in a fucking tree trying to set this line up, and it's just not happening. You're not gonna pull sticks. It's just not working, right? You gotta climb down now. You gotta climb this other one, and man, that was a little stressful. I would have to say my adrenaline was rushing like crazy, and so it was a little tiring and stuff. Actually, it was pretty draining, but got the job done. Got way up in that tiny little maple tree that was all dead and cracked and split. I'm tied into a different tree, so if something happens, I unbuck and I'll swing away and stuff, be safe. But it is nerve wracking because it's a very dangerous industry. There's lots of videos you can watch of horrible accidents, of shit that you can't control, shit that just happens. And yeah, so it's been a long week, man. I took a good couple hour nap. When I got home, woke up at 8, and I was like, man, I could do a rain check and just put it off till tomorrow. But I was like, no, I said I was gonna do it Thursday. I'm gonna stand by my word, do it. I don't care if I'm tired. I'm still gonna do it. Have fun, talk to you guys. It'd have been a little bit better if some other people jumped on and bounce off ideas and discussions and stuff, but it's okay. I'm pretty used to doing this by myself and flying by the seat of my pants sometimes, or however the situation rolls. But I will admit, man, I was almost like, man, I need to wake up a little bit more, or this and that, little bitch ass excuses. You know what? It's like, in the end, it doesn't matter. Just get it done. Start doing it. Start having fun. It's like with those push-ups. You start doing push-ups. It's like, oh man, I don't want to do anymore. I guess I still say, oh well, do them. do them. So so by December we're going to be pumping out a lot of push-ups to be physically fit and able to withstand tumbles and falls and trips and bad situations that happens in the woods. I think we've covered this enough. You need to be physically fit as much as you can when you go out there and stuff. If you're on the couch all year and you're going to go on a Bigfoot expedition, how can you expect to have the endurance to keep walking or keep up or to do this and that if you really haven't done anything but sat on your butt, got fat and lazy? You can't expect it, to perform at top level when you haven't performed at top level in a long time. You're just asking for injury and stuff. And the most basic injuries are sprains of your ankles and legs. You don't want to do that. You don't want to be a person who is camping with us and walks out of his RV down the steps and then sprains his leg. And now you can't do anything. That has happened. That has happened to us with a particular researcher, a young researcher too, who is not a young researcher. So it can even happen to young people if you're not careful enough and balanced enough and physically strong enough, just your body to simply be ready for this unbalanced moment instead of, straining something because you haven't exercised your legs and ankles and stuff to withstand some odd movements, because in the woods you're going to come across odd stuff. You're going to snap your ankle, go in a hole, stuff gives way, blah, 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 blah. You step on a stick, roll over. It actually happens quite often. And then, of course, you're miles and miles from your car. And if you're by yourself and you're physically, you are screwed up and you're not walking, it's going to be a long way back hopping on one foot or crawling, which, again, if you're not physically able to even lift yourself up in such a matter, you're not going to be crawling for much distance. Hell, I'm physically capable, and I don't think, you're talking about crawling for miles and miles and miles. I mean, that's a physically enduring thing, man. I mean, that'd be hard, especially if you have an injury and stuff too. That's hurting on top of that. I mean, just to say, yeah, let's just go crawl across the forest without being hurt. That's going to be hard enough. Now you are injured and stuff, and every time you tweak that injury, it's going to shoot a sharp pain in you. Now you think you're going to go crawl for help. In a survival situation, your body and mind can do a lot of stuff, miraculous stuff. But at the same time, that same body who's been on that couch for a whole entire year, is it going to have that same miraculous power of survivability that a person who's a little bit more exercised? That's what I'm basically saying. A 10% increase of survivability is a hell of a lot when it comes to in the woods. Could be. I mean, we don't know. We just don't know. Some people would say those are fairies. Those are fairies that you're seeing, or willow wisps, which are evil and stuff. If you go near those things, they'll kill you. And willow wisps, kind of a thing, a fairy lights or a fairy and stuff. And a lot of legends are you don't go near those things because you go missing or you die mysteriously. I mean, spiritual things too. If you don't want to go close to an evil spirit, because actually almost every single culture around the world talks about spiritual possession and evil spirits, especially possessing and or evil witches, and including with evil spirits. That's a very humanistic common thread among all cultures, even if they talk about shamans or witches or these magic users. There's a spiritual aspect to that too, and these evil spirits. So It's very interesting how cultures separated from each other thousands of miles, even hundreds of years, thousands of years of time periods of history, and thousands of years of distance have very similar stories, very similar entities, very similar understandings of these concepts of, you know, of like the wild man and giants and stuff, and they kidnap women and they eat people and stuff, or ghosts that can possess people, and spiritual influences, or witches or shamans, or these magic users or black evil magic users and stuff. That the most remote tribes in Papua New Guinea have stories like that, to the Native Americans, to ancient China, Europeans. Very odd. Very, very odd to just universally come up with these concepts universally without having been influenced by other cultures and stuff. It's very, very interesting. Again, same with this like Shangula or Golgotha or these ancient advanced civilizations or other races that live in the earth, and there's these magical hidden paradises and stuff that you can only find through Hollow Earth or the remote Himalayan mountains or remote haunted mountain of the dead and stuff like that. There's a lot of the mountain of the dead where there's evil spirits that live on the mountains, and whoever goes there doesn't usually come back. And there's a lot of mountain of the deads and spirits that roam the places, and the natives or the ancestors don't go there, give warnings and stuff. Very similar entities and concepts and understandings of what happens when you interact with some of these similar entities, like these will-o-wisps, these fairies, these ghosts. Crazy stuff. This reminds me of something that I seen on from the confessionals. The host of the confessionals was interviewing. He said, and claims they had a Bigfoot encounter and had all these like monkeys going crazy all around them, going at it in real time when they're out in the woods, right? Like they're surrounded by these guys making all these monkey calls. And then when they went back and looked at the audio recording and analyzed it and listened to it on the computer and all that, it sounded like owls. And he is adamant that it was Bigfoot making monkey calls at him that somehow got transformed into owl vocalizations when you listen to it, on your computer. I mean, again, if you believe it's some spiritual entity thing that can do all this weird stuff, like, demons, stuff like that, and manipulate technology like ghosts or like aliens and stuff, it kind of makes sense if you fall into that category. But if you don't fall in that category, you're going by common sense. It's like, oh, you guys got very excited about a bunch of barred owls making normal barred owl calls that do and can sound like monkey chatter. And they go on and on and on. Yeah, they do can sound like that. So I saw, sometimes I hover around this fence of laughable, simple bullshit, or, is there more really going on? Because I have experienced more that's really going on. I've seen UFOs. I've seen ghost stuff. I've had paranormal activity stuff. I've seen the stickman thing. I did the interview with my father a couple years ago. We talked about the multiple different encounters and stuff that we witnessed, UFOs that we both witnessed and stuff. I'm witnessing it with my friends. He pulls up the car and all of a sudden gets out and sees it and stuff. So I have experienced that kind of woo paranormal side, but with the Bigfoot stuff, I need to see a Bigfoot really disappear in front of my eyes, and then I'll jump on that woo train a little bit more. Because to me, again, it will take a lot of the fun, it'll take a lot out of it. Because if it's a spiritual entity, especially if it's more of a nefarious, evil spiritual entity, then it really isn't. It's not the same as an undiscovered primate out there, a living, breathing animal kind of a thing, to me, in my opinion. So that would change the entire experience for me. And it should for you guys too, you know? Because if you wouldn't look for ghosts and do the ghost stuff because of religious reasons or whatever, and if Bigfoot is related to that kind of stuff, then we shouldn't really be looking at going after Bigfoot either for the same legitimate reasons as if you don't want to go look after ghosts, which I don't go look after ghosts for those legitimate reasons. Spiritual entities and evil stuff and things, you just don't know what's really going on. You don't know the whole, you're a little piece on a board game and you don't know the rules. That kind of a thing. Just gonna chat to catch up on the comments and stuff. We're about 4 minutes left, and then we'll be shutting down the show because I'm starving. I'm gonna have a midnight snack. I am hungry. Yeah. I might go live in the woods on Sunday. I'll be busy this weekend. Next weekend is our conference. It's a little different. We're gonna have I'm gonna have displays set up, and if these damn casts hurry up and get in the mail, I'll have some casts to show. But I don't know, man. We'll see. Displays and some different historical stuff and different sections on Native American, European, and a bunch of different stuff like that kind of stuff. And lectures by me. It's a 6-hour event and stuff, so it's a free event, so you guys can't really complain, right? It's free and stuff. If you guys want to go camping out and stuff with us, it's going to be a different location than where the event is taking place, and you guys will have to privately message for those details because we're not making that public and stuff. I mean, even though it's a public campground, anyone could really go there, but try to vet a little bit of the people who would actually try to be there with us. I don't need some hooligans trying to disrupt or troll, or I've gotten threats and stuff of people. I'm gonna show up and cause a ruckus, and it's just all of that does is just take away from the spreading the Bigfoot awareness at the conference, networking, and trying to find evidence in the woods, and typically just not something you want to deal with, man. Right? So that's why there's a little bit of vetting when it comes to that. Obviously, if someone shows up at the conference, even though it's free, it doesn't mean you have a right to be able to stay there and do whatever you want. You will be kicked out. You can and will be kicked out and escorted either by me or law enforcement if necessary. Because it's not, you don't get to do whatever you want just because it's free. I don't want people to misconstrue anything. There's obviously common sense. Obviously, even though common sense isn't so common anymore, I guess. But you'll learn one way or another. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. You'll learn one way or another, okay? I mean, the Native Americans actually have quite a different depictions of a lot of different entities and stuff. In Michigan, there's a famous pictograph of what is called like the Spider Man or a spider entity, and this humanoid. It's a humanoid person with spider appendages coming out of him and stuff. Who knows what that representing means? It could be a sending of energy or something like that. We don't know. It just looks like a spider kind of a thing. There's a bunch of different pictographs, and actually you can find. Actually, there's a lot of pictographs and stuff that are unfounded, not undocumented and stuff that are just out there that randomly people find and look at and see and hike and maybe take pictures and stuff. But there's a lot of that that's not found and lost. I think Robert Kreider actually dives into that and supposedly claims that he's found some of these lost pictographs that depict dinosaurs and stuff. Dinosaurs and things like that. You'll have to go to his channel and some of the interviews if you want to learn more of that, or the interview that he gave on our channel a couple years ago. I believe we do dive into that. I try to remember. I think we've done 2 interviews with Robert Kreider. We did the very first one, which was like 5 years ago. And then we did a more recent one that was, I want to say, after the expedition where he was with us. And where he dives into, I think he dives into the Jeff Meldrum story of why there's disdain there and the dinosaurs and everything else. I think that's in one of those interviews, unless I am just remembering that from like the Jeff Meldrum stuff from a different interview. I know he has talked about it on interviews. I just can't remember if it was on mine or not because it's been such a while. It's been a couple years, but somebody told me that I trust that this is knowledge from the Himalayas that Sasquatch are part divine beings. Some people would say, oh yeah, they are divine beings. And some people would say, yeah, the angels that came down and bred with humans were divine beings too. But it doesn't really mean that they were good. Being a divine being, it doesn't necessarily mean you're good, you know. I think the devil considers himself a divine being, but in what contents, you know, in what perspective, you know, like the book, that an old ancient men of renown and stuff, the mighty men of ancient renown, like Hercules, you know, he could have been a divine being, a son of the gods and stuff. Other perspective is always half devil, half evil, you know. I mean, it's all perspective when it comes to that kind of stuff, really. I'm just gonna try to get through these last little. There's a lot of comments you guys were cracking away at. I appreciate stuff. Gives the show a little bit more substance to go off of and stuff. You know, I don't have to wing it as much. I can read stuff and go off of that. You know. But again, I invite people to come on the show when I have a chill stream or hangout session, and the link to literally come on the show is here. You know, obviously. So don't be afraid. Come on, speak your mind, speak your truths. I guess. Just, you know, try to keep it clean. Try not to swear as much as you can. All that. I mean, don't be, you know, foaming at the mouth, going crazy on someone. Well, I appreciate that compliment. I don't think so. I don't think it's anything to do with the rights of the individual. I mean, maybe animal rights kind of a thing, but even then, we really just don't give a fuck. I mean, when it really comes to industry and everything else, even the animals that are endangered and stuff, you know, most that's never a factor in any of the economic planning and stuff. I mean, even though unless you're California, and then you'll save a little rodent or little bird, little owl or whatever. But I think it's just the stereotype of the perception of the monster that lives in the woods behind the house. I think that would cause so much chaos of this perception of, you know, well, it explains the missing people. It explains, you know, I think the perception of that, and of these, especially if it's some otherworldly entity, other people think that, oh, the government lies about them and stuff because they're the Nephilim giants. They're giants. They want to capture them. They want to do DNA studies on them. They want to keep it a secret, obviously, because it proves the Bible to be true. And uh, there's a lot of repercussions and conflict when it comes to the spiritual side of the Bible and government, and this real world, where modern world, where spirituality is dead in the West. The Western world with modern medicine and science has conquered that superstition. So having something that fully exposes, that shows proof positive, oh no, there is a spiritual world, that puts a knife in the gut of the whole Western ideal of Western science, understanding, hypothesis, and all of that, not the superstition of the East and the philosophical spirituality of all of that. No, we've conquered North America. We've wiped out the Indians. We've slaughtered and we killed all the animals on the planet. We've went to the moon. We built nukes. We have computers. We have more technological power in our pockets than what we sent to the moon. So, spiritual side of the West is, in that sort of superstitious sense, is dead. So that could be a reason right there. And the CIA does label that the Bible and Christianity as fundamentally problematic. That probably is because you just can't control them and not easily oppressed, easily, things like that. You just look it up in different classified documents, or a simple Google search could 5 minutes on Google, and you could find government documents themselves. It's kind of ridiculous, actually, that people don't take the time to just look. Could, yeah, they try to keep it under wraps and then eliminate or exterminate, or simply just goes extinct by itself. I mean, again, there has to be in my opinion, a more legitimate reason than even the conflict that it would cause with the monster in the woods kind of a thing. This flesh and blood physical animal and stuff, I don't think would cause much of a conflict other than the perception of it being a scary monster living in our backyards, compared to the conflict if it was a talking human, relic, hominid, or whatever, or a talking entity, or intelligent humanoid, hominoid, an alien, a spiritual ghost, a demon, the lost giants, or whatever. I mean, all those gets very problematic really, really, really fast. If a natural animal, I mean, there's plenty of weird natural animals and stuff. I mean, it wouldn't, even if it's a long lost ancestor of the human bush lineage, or great apes, or wherever it comes from, physical blood thing. It's a long lost relic from a historical age. That's more acceptable than it's a spirit, it's a ghost, it's an alien, it's a demon, it's a magical entity that lives in hollow earth and has magical powers to access doorways. I mean, that's fundamentally exponentially skyrockets the number of conflict and craziness that occurs and would happen. I mean, so there must be a legitimate, crazy reasoning, right? Or maybe there's not. Maybe the government is just too scared of a flesh and blood animal to recognize it. Honor Your Oath from Jess from Florida. No, I don't watch that. It doesn't sound familiar. I'm not sure if what that is, if that's a political show, or if that is one of those the cop watchers or First Amendment audit kind of things. People who film cops. Bigfoot Truth says Steve, which I think he's referring as Steve Coles, Squatch Detective. We're at Squatch DTV. Bigfoot Truth says Steve actually goes and ruins or will ruin your reputation before people meet you. He's that kind of scumbag. That's why he deserves a billy club across the nose. Well, see, right there, that's a threat of violence. You might upset him because apparently that would be enough for a threat of violence. He made a big point about saying that for Mr. Duffy and all that. I mean, that's your opinion and stuff. Actually, I mean, he kind of was doing that with Robert Kreider, just posting it everywhere and trying to again throw some dirt on him. But again, technically, some would say Robert Kreider dug the hole, got into that hole, and Steve just took the dirt and put it on him. So I think I kind of see both sides to it a little bit, but I mean, obviously Steve doesn't deserve to get punched in the nose or Billy Crowd across the nose just because of he's being an asshole or you don't like him or something like that. I mean, that's that bullshit. Radical talk. He was like, "We're being violent." And I don't want to be condoning violence, but I don't think that's going to be anything that's ever going to happen. And bullshit. And again, if you take every little simple veil threat seriously, you'll never get a wink of sleep. You'll never find peace. I mean, you always have something to bitch and complain about or do something, always someone to expose. I mean, at what point is it enough? At what point is it's like, it's going to keep happening. It's anyways. Well, maybe we'll get a couple more, I guess, about Steve. So Steve doesn't know how to mind his own business, and that's what his problem. He tries to fry a little fish, and he lets the big fish escape. He's in the way, and he knows it, and he likes to be a problem. I have heard some people say that he was a gatekeeper, being on History Channel and all this. He's kind of a gatekeeper, a government stooge kind of a thing. I don't know, Steve has a very unique way of doing things, going about it. So, man. Again, you like him or don't like him, you don't have to watch him. It's as simple with Robert Kreider or anyone else who you disagree with, whether you have opinions on Def Meldrum or this or that. I mean, a simple block and not care, and boom, they're gone. It's like they never existed. They're gone forever. Bye. That is the most simplest thing that you could do. But if you're gonna, fester on words, someone else sad, get upset. I mean, technically, Steve did get physically upset because he was getting pretty pissed off. He was yelling and fucking, screaming and shit. It's like, that's not really good for you. I don't think, I don't know. You could get stressed out from a lot of people saying a lot of stupid ass shit if you let them. And a simple block, goodbye. Yeah, you expose people for being a piece of shit. Well, there's always going to be people that being a piece of shit too. I mean, again, that road never ends. So, but yeah, simple block, move on, pass on. It's like they never existed. You won't see them again. It's like, unless you like diving into it and getting into that and doing all that more and more. I don't know. I don't know. And again, some people would say Steve Coles, he did did a memorial show for Jeff Meldrum. Some people were making posts that he was using that tragedy to get views and clicks. I'm not saying that, but there are some other people who were saying that there was a lot of people in the community that were doing that. I'm not sure if Steve did one show or if he did two shows with Jeff, the whole Jeff thing, or it was a replay or whatever. But it's the same thing. Some people would say that just trying to get clicks and views off of a death of a celebrity kind of a thing. Other people would say that it's a memorial show. You're honoring them, kind of a thing. Other people just really don't give a fuck. You're doing your thing. I don't know. There's too much. I do understand the need to expose people for hoaxing and bullshit lying of storytelling. I understand that, and I agree with that. If you're lying, you got a bullshit fucking story. You're hoaxing. You're throwing a fucking rock on a camera, and we catch you. Shoot them up with the flak cannons. Take that aircraft down. But someone gives their opinion about someone else. I don't think that's good enough for me to make a whole show about or expose that person or whatever. So doesn't have anything to do with other than he's a mean person and you shouldn't follow him because he's a person who says mean words and he has such vile disdain for a dead person. How can you trust him or you know expect anything less? I don't know, man. People, I have a lot of fucking opinions on my Facebook about a lot of different things. A lot of people probably don't like that, but when it comes to Bigfoot and stuff, I take it very seriously. It's a different subject matter altogether. You shouldn't take my opinions about everything else outside of the Bigfoot community and then inflate that and let that decide whether or not I'm a good researcher or not. Because that's being judged unfairly and stuff. Whether you could be politically on the right or politically on the left. I mean, that shouldn't necessarily determine if you're a good researcher or not. Although you could play into that a little bit. There might be some physical signs that you say, well, maybe, but at the same time, just by saying I'm purely on the left or I'm purely on the right, that doesn't necessarily mean automatically, well, he's a piece of shit or he's not a good researcher when it comes to this. All that. That's what I'm trying to say. There's something in the Bigfoot community that happens, the hoaxing, the lies, something that can be exposed, then call them out on that. I don't need to hear someone fucking being called out on opinion that they had, even though it's in the Bigfoot community and stuff. I mean, I honestly think, I know for a fact that more people seen Steve Cole's show about what Robert Carter posted than what people seen Robert Carter post. So like making a bigger deal than out of something that originally would have been. So anyways, Sexist Jack says I stopped watching Untold Radio right around when they had some psychic clown with white afro on. I don't know whose show was that on. That wasn't on. That couldn't have been on Doug Hijack's show, the legitimate show, right? I mean, one of those other quirky ones I expect. Yeah. Again, it doesn't matter as long as you have a good story, you look good, you sound good. Put it through that content making machine. Crank it out and grind it, crank it out. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how the fuck it tastes, what kind of quality. It's just put some more. Put it out. It don't matter. Put the next one out. That one doesn't matter. Now put the next one out. That one doesn't matter. It only matters is the next one, the next one, the next one. That's why you'll have any bimbo on there. That's my opinion. From what I've seen, and apparently it's other people's opinions from what they've seen. Okay. You always get. I mean, to be fair, Mr. Duffy. I mean, you seem like you get blocked on a lot of different channels because you just simply just don't behave when they tell you to behave. And on here, it's like, I mean, you say some off the wall stuff, and some, but I don't fucking know, man. I just don't. I don't have a problem with you or Raptor or some of those other fucking people. You've never given me enough problems to say, fuck it, you're banned, you're blocked, and stuff like that. I don't know. All those other people piss a lot of other people off. Only people I have blocked on here are people that did the nefarious links in the chat, and this one researcher who has threatened to show up at my events and campouts and actually made physical threats and stuff. I told him, you'll see what happens, I guess. I don't know, man. A lot of big talk from people who just don't do stuff, so. Yeah, there's oh, that's another thing. This show might go for another whole hour if we start getting into calling out a couple other bimbos and actors, hell-bent actors. I will say that. Those hell-bent actors. This little bimbo, she's not blonde, but bimbo blondes and boobs and stuff, little cosplaying Tomb Raider out there with hell-bent holler, Let me tell you about them talking about the military helicopters buzzing all around and all the shooting going around, hunting Bigfoot that's going on, and they're all like freaking out. Come on, guys, really? Also, they don't know the difference between coyote calls and Bigfoot calls. Leaves on a tree and a Bigfoot jumping between trees and trees. We've shown that a little bit. The Bigfoot jumping between two trees from hell-bent actors, hell-bent holler, it's a fucking leaf. It's fucking leaves as the camera is panning and moving. It's so ridiculous. But apparently there was like some government war zone hunting party in like the LBL when they were there. Conveniently. But no one else that was at the LBL during that time reports any crazy military operations or hunting parties going on, and war and gunfire. Weird. Little weird. There's a couple of little weird things about that. But any I would say any bimbo that claims to be a fucking witch is a little weird. Probably has some weird stuff going on around them or follows them, I would say. It's a little weird. Actually, anyone who claims they're a fucking witch, I think you're just fucking stupid. A complete fucking retard. A complete fucking retard. Oh, well. If I said a word that you don't like, oh, well. What Bigfoot groups am I a part of? I don't know. Like on Facebook, I'm in like 300 groups, guy, dude. I'm in too many. I'm in too many. Too many that I probably don't even see everything. Guaranteed. I am just reading the comments. Commenters. There's only 2 of them. I don't care. I appreciate it. I'd rather have good quality people watch this review, spread this information, than have some bullshit con adders tell his fucking story and me saying, "Yep, oh, that really happened. Oh, yep," and then you guys being fucking tricked. Kumbaya from a liar who's telling me their story. We should believe him. We shouldn't believe the subtle ticks and tails and micro expressions from this person as they lie about their story. No, we shouldn't trust our gut instincts about how completely, utterly stupid and simply stupid, how simple it is that this is completely stupid and doesn't make sense whatsoever. We should not trust our instincts. We should listen to the host, bob their head. We should listen to the storyteller. Keyword there is storyteller. Well, I can tell you that Kerry was definitely a pretty big guy. That if you got in a physical fight with Kerry and you weren't a little intimidated, you know, because he was physical. He was a physically big guy. I'm 6 foot. I'm not a small guy, but Kerry was a bigger guy and looked like if you had to get in a wrestling match with Kerry, you better put some work in because it looked like he'd be pretty strong, and he was flat out scared to go into those woods because something actually happened to him. You could physically see it on him. There was a couple times he didn't want to go out. He didn't want to go out at night with us. He said, nope. He couldn't do it. He physically just couldn't do it. That's not someone who's faking it. That's not someone who's acting. That's not someone. I've been in the woods with people who are fake, who are bullshit storytellers, who are acting. I've been in the woods with them. I know how they are. I know how they completely just don't fucking know anything. Kerry definitely wasn't an actor. He wasn't out there faking stuff. He wasn't exaggerating stuff. He legitimately had something happen to him that physically and mentally and spiritually scarred him for life. I am witnessed to how he was when trying to muster up the strength to get out there and stuff. In a big group of people, it was no problem, but you just got a little handful of people, it was a little bit more intimidating to him because he knows what's out there. Probably understands and has had a lot of nightmares of what could happen, what could go wrong. You don't get scared to fucking death and quit going out in the woods and quit hunting and become a God-fearing man over something that doesn't physically traumatize you. So anything about that? Again, you can have your opinions about that. I don't agree with them, but you have your free speech. You can say it, whatever. I'm not gonna ban you or hound you or criticize you or all that. Yeah, whoever, Spencer Jameson Spencer. I don't give a fuck. That guy is completely full of shit, in my opinion, based upon the things that I don't know what he's done a lot last year other than being on Untold Radio, but his first couple of findings, evidence of solo stuff and footprints, highly suspect, in my opinion. Highly suspect. And, only, and they were, audio was verified by good old Sawdust Beast guys. I went through the audio and verified it is a legitimate Bigfoot vocalization. Uh-huh. And then never talked about it ever again. Although that was 2 years ago when I looked at that and stuff, and I think they've had, or he has a part of, or has had some group outings and stuff, and I'm sure they found stuff and magical coincidences and stuff like that. Blah blah blah. That's what I mean. Obviously, that's why he's a host on Untold Radio. Obviously, some more crazy cool stuff has happened, or he can talk. He can talk good. Well, that qualifies you to be a good host. You talk good. You've been in the woods a little bit. You're a Bigfoot expert. Good enough. That is 100% true. There's always something like a raccoon. And you know what? They are highly interested in shiny objects and gifts and stuff like that. Crows, birds, a shiny object. A crow will snatch that out, no problem. Gifting a bowling ball instead of a marble, and then we'll talk. Exactly. Or, like in my case, a boulder was moved to where I can pick that boulder up, but I can't walk it safely. I have documentation of that actually happening in one of my areas. A boulder getting moved out of this boulder pile, and then I pick it up to try to move it back, and it's not happening. And I'm gonna tell you what, I'm a pretty strong boy. I pick it up, but I'm not moving with it safely enough. There, I might, not trip or fall or sprain or twist something, and then have it, fall on you and break your leg or something like that. So I actually have documentation, and it would show like there's something legitimate with some physical strength that is moving a bowling ball. Not something that, rolls it over somewhere, but picks it up out of something and moves it somewhere else. That's what we need. These little marbles and stuff, completely agree. Not if you're obese, like, or Freeman was never a skinny guy. He was kind of always out of shape. Also, how long? How long are you gonna dig a 20-foot hole? Now, a 20-foot hole deep, you gotta have circumference because the deeper you go, the wider you need to make it, right? You got to be able to fit a Bigfoot, and it got to be steep enough, or I don't know. The hole got to be holy enough for a Bigfoot to not escape. Whatever fucking idea that kind of fucking shit is. But the main thing is, I don't think physically Freeman could have dug that hole, and I don't think he could have done it in any kind of timely manner for a Bigfoot not to realize what the fuck's going on. And also, where? That's the key thing. Where did he dig this hole at that he claims? Where? It most certainly was not on his private property. It wasn't on anyone else's private property. So if it was on public land, if it was on state land, or if it was on federal land or natural protected land, it was illegal. It would be illegal to do. You can't dig a 20-foot fucking hole on non-private property whenever the fuck you feel like it, even if there are Bigfoot there. Bullshit. It's bullshit. Well, what happened to the hole? He says he dug it. What happened? He fill it back up? Pretty sure destruction of the environment and property, and hell, you can't even take rocks. You can only take a certain amount of poundage of rock and soil and other things from like public land. At least here in Michigan, there's some state regulations where you can only have a certain amount of rocks or stuff that you find out in public lands. If you're doing that, it's regulated. You can't just start digging dirt and taking all this topsoil back to your house for your garden. because it's public land. But yeah, so he made the claim on his last interview that he dug a 20-foot hole. I think he was just on the spot, promptly lying. Man, I'm really far back in these comments. Yeah, and that's exactly right. It's too hard. Where are you digging? You're digging in the fucking forest. You're gonna hit root balls and stuff. I do tree work, guys. Roots and root balls are hard to dig through. You ever try to use a shovel to dig through a fucking root ball? Okay, now bust out an axe, chop that root ball. Okay, well now you're gonna trust me, dude. You ain't unless you have an excavator or heavy machinery. You, especially if there's trees and you're in a forest, you are not digging a 20-foot hole without some hard labor, especially by yourself. I mean, you're talking years long project by yourself. If it's all handwork with a shovel, no, I don't see it. And it's illegal if you did. If you did it on public land, anyways, it would be illegal as fuck. So he's probably too stupid or just in the moment lying, not even caring or thinking about, oh yeah, yeah. If you really get down to the details of the lie, it doesn't make sense. It unravels itself. Yeah, I dug a 20-foot hole. It took me however long on public land that no one found out about. Rangers never found out about it. Come on. Come on. Now you should go watch. I did like 4 live shows about the Paul Freeman thing. We went out, giving credit and kind of going both sides of the aisle, exposing some of the lies and bullshit and over exaggeration. It's over exaggeration at the very least, to potential hoaxing, to a little more legitimate stuff that Freeman could be legitimate. We go through all of that, so I would advise you to watch all of that. And people have tried to discredit him, and Renee DeHinden actually back in the day thought it was legitimate and then thought he was bullshit hoaxing and then went full Renee DeHinden style, uh, given his vividly expressed opinions about Paul Freeman being a fake hoaxing scumbag, basically. And we did show videos of Renee talking about that himself, actually. Well, it's not hearsay when it comes to Paul Freeman if Paul Freeman himself is the person who says it on his interview and then is lying about it. It's not hearsay. It's coming from the horse's own mouth, like the 20-foot hole or the being, pinned down by the Bigfoots that he filmed in the Freeman footage. They pinned him down, screaming at him for fucking 2 hours or hour, more than enough time to flip that camera back on and record it, but he didn't. So legitimate concerns and over exaggeration coming from Paul Freeman himself that he makes himself. Because I just, he, in my opinion, he couldn't help it. He couldn't help it. All right, I'm going to try to just scroll through this. All this luxurious comments from the Bigfoot Truth. it'd be illegal for me to do so unless I have a permit, and then you can only get dead stuff that's already on the ground or stuff that's obstructing the trail system. I will say that when you have some of the people who draw these poltergeist entities and stuff, or some of these little kid who draws these entities, sometimes they are depicted as a giant hairy entity or a giant, at very least giant entity. Now they might not look like a gorilla or Bigfoot, but sometimes these are depicted as a giant humanoid, hairy kind of demon creature. In fact, a lot of older descriptions and pictures and artistic depictions of demons and like medieval books are, they look like hairy wild men, the beasts. They look like beasts, wild humanoid beasts, or Bigfoot, I guess. But it could just be a coincidence. Um, uh, yeah, some of these comments, dude. Some of these comments are just a little funny. All right. Um, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm just laughing at this. This is just the right afro dude was definitely on the main show with Doug and his son. Oh my god. Hey, it's legitimate, right? It must be legitimate. There ain't no way he wouldn't have any non-legitimate guy on his fucking show, right? Especially when we're supposed to send him our evidence, and he has this questionnaire, this filter that you know, he makes you answer these questions before he even fucking looks at this fucking shit. But that same filter does not apply to his shows at all. Anyone, anyone can go on that show, talk about any fucking story, looking like anything, and you will be taken as a seriously credible. Or the official cover story statement is, well, we're letting people talk about their experiences and encounters in a safe environment. Yes, we're allowing people to lie in a safe environment where no one will question the story, because that's what legitimate, integrity filled researchers do. That's how the scientific method and theory of everything works. There's no double checking. There's no one, details don't matter. There's no double checking. Nah. This is a safe space where your theories and your stories and your experience don't have to be questioned, second glanced at, double checked. No, no, no. And then I have heard, and people have heard, and I've experienced a little bit, is people have said, that gatekeeping of Doug, and if you piss him off, he might put his thumb on you, and you might not get that TV deal, or he knows people. Steven Struford threatened that before. Well, they know people. He knows people. You better play political correctness. You better play politics. You better play ball. You better be nice to people. You better not say anything. You better not call them a hoaxer. You better not expose anyone, because you know what? You're going to be known as that mean guy. He don't play well with others. He won't lie and cover up for other people. He doesn't play well with others. They're not going to let you on that show. They're not going to. I've heard it. I have heard that. People have told me to that. People have threatened it to my face. People have just warned me, like, hey, man, be careful. Well, when the truth doesn't matter, evidence doesn't matter, gatekeeping is really what seems to be going on, then yeah, I mean, why am I not surprised that people are telling me this, that they've experienced that? Why am I not surprised to be threatened by that? It just kind of confirms it. Money matters, influence, the networking matters, opportunities matter, not the research, not actual evidence, not having legitimate real researchers on, stuff like that, you know. Oh yeah. I should get off and stuff, but you know, I enjoy coming on, talking, and giving my opinions and chatting away. Even though it'd be a lot better if someone else was on, I would have a lot more fun. Um, Again, you know, compared to how I usually was, you know, it still seems like it's been a while. I'm not doing this as often as I used to, so I don't mind staying up and stuff. And I actually have tomorrow off, so I don't have to get up early. You know, I'm not going to lose sleep, so I am okay. And there was a heck of a lot more comments and questions, some of it. And so I don't mind. I mean, I'd be still eating. I'm staying up anyways. I take a nap. I'm gonna stay up anyway. So got stuff to work on for the conference. I got audio to do, and I got a bunch of more stuff to put over to the hard drive. Four terabyte hard drive now. So I think we've got plenty of space for all of the audio research that we have done and will do, um, and more of that, more videos and stuff like that. Be able to store them and all of that good stuff. There's a famous quote from a really good famous martial artist who I like, who basically says, and I would sum it up like this too. Uh, you can pick up 300-pound man and carry them. Yeah, no problem. It's easier when they don't hit back, or you know, or like the quote is, "Boards don't hit back." You can practice on a dummy all the time. It doesn't mean anything, especially when that person or that dummy's not hitting back. You pick up a 300-pound man and carry him around the waist all you want. It's a lot easier when they're not trying to stop you or take your head off, right? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. If you really if you really want to be a tough guy and think that you know what you're doing, you should train like you're a tough guy every single day, because then you'll know. If you sit on the couch all year and think, "Oh, I know what to do," you haven't practiced anything, and then all of a sudden you get in a fight with the person who does know what they're doing, I think there'll be a big difference. But I mean, if you fight another person who doesn't know what they're doing, I mean, you know, eh. But when it comes to fighting and actual fighting, a person who trains and actually is into that can be way more dangerous than a person who's like, I just get angry. I see red. And fighting is one of those things that's learned. It's learned. It's a self-learning trait. You're not born with it. You can be born tough. You can be born strong, born big. But to learn to fight, to be proficient in fighting, that's something that surprisingly, it's a very niche thing. In fact, there's a lot of cultures around the world that participating, like in South America, they have like fighting festivals and stuff where the villagers and women and they'll fight each other. And this is a tradition that has gone back for hundreds of years, right? But when you watch them fight, they don't know how to fight. They're swinging wildly, recklessly. There's no training. There's like no tradition of a fighting style that has been developed from this tradition of the villagers fighting it out. There's no developed fighting style and stuff. So even though there's tradition and everyone knows this particular date, everyone's going to fight each other, and it's okay. No one has developed a particular fighting style or a method of fighting, strategies or tactics. It's like two people who have just sat on the fucking couch all of their life, getting up, deciding I'm going to fight you, and then trying their best to throw a punch that they've never practiced with. Throw kicks that they've never practiced with. Do things that they just never done or try to do, and it's funny. It's hilarious and stuff, So, and they're ready to fight. They're willing to fight. They're happy to fight. But they're not good at fighting. They don't know. They don't know what they're doing. You put them in a ring with a boxer who's been trained and stuff. There's a pretty big difference. So I would say unless you are legitimately about that kind of thing and you're not practicing stuff, you probably don't want to be acting like you are Billy Bad Boy all the time. No, Paul Freeman. Again, it was his last interview. You go watch him. He's lying out of his fucking mouth. He's lying. Again, this is all nonsensical questions because he was in his last interview before he died. I'm not the interviewer. I didn't ask the question, and I probably would have. I would have hounded on to him. So it's not hearsay because this came from the very mouth of Paul Freeman. So it's not hearsay. Again, the assumption is he dug it by hand is because of the location of his research. Is if he's not on private land, you can't dig on federal land. You can't dig in state land. You can't dig on nature areas, protected wildlife areas. You especially can't take in heavy equipment in there and blaze a fucking trail and dig a fucking hole wherever you want. So no, it's not hearsay. He said it from his own mouth. You can make these simple assumptions based on legitimate common sense and logistics of what it takes to do it by yourself with or without equipment and the legality and the area where it supposedly happened. And yeah, we don't have all this information because he got asked it one time on an interviewer, and once he gave his answer, the interviewer didn't press him like a good interviewer should, pressed him for the details. I wanted to have his son on to talk about it, and he agreed to come on to talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly and try to spread some truth about it. And he got butthurt because he seen that I did a fucking show showing some pictures of his book. Not the entire thing, just some pictures. So he didn't want to come on. So he doesn't want to defend his father's name. I don't know. So I don't know. We won't get those answers because the only person who wanted to come on got butthurt because of the other shit I was showing. Which in fact was only in that show, in that context, was showing some legitimacy towards his father and not exposing his father as being a hoax and fake. So again, yeah, I think he's a piece of shit liar who made it up because he's too fat and lazy to ever dig a fucking hole like that. He was too fat and lazy. I can see it. I can physically look at him and say, there ain't no way. There ain't no way. Because if he dug a 20-foot hole by hand, he'd probably lost all that weight. And if he dug it with machinery, he probably would have got caught and got busted. And then he's probably too stupid enough that he probably would have exaggerated and made a story and made videotape the fucking hole if it actually got done, because he would be so proud of it trying to trap a Bigfoot, but he didn't. You can call it slander. I really don't give a shit. I think he's a fake ass hoaxer who was telling lies to that interviewer. Oh well. I think you're going off the deep end here, dude. That is totally not true. 100% not true. You can't do whatever you want just because you're a park ranger or whatever, especially if you're Paul Freeman. No, sorry. Nope. I don't know. No one answered. He only gave, like I explained, he only answered the question once, and no one ever pressed him about it again. So I don't know. Why don't you ask his son if his son knew everything about it? Maybe he has a picture about it in his book that I didn't show. I don't know. Maybe there's a picture of it in his fucking book. I don't know. I didn't show it. But I think it's fake. I should be a cop. No, thank you. What was the other one? You should learn what authority actually feels like. It's pretty empowering. I think already, if you learn what authority is and then you think it's empowering, I don't think you should be in that kind of authority then. You should be humble if you have authority and power. You should be humble. You should be more empowering and feel good about yourself. You don't get it climbing up. You don't get it climbing up someone's residential tree and trimming the tree for them. Try being a pig for the day. Actually, when we're climbing in a tree and we're taking down this tree, we are the authority on our work site, and we tell people and the customer of that fucking home what to do and what not to do to stand over there. They're not going to stand over here. No. And I don't need authority. What is authority going to do for me? What does that have to do with the conversation? What's authority going to do for me? Am I supposed to abuse that authority on everyone else or use that authority to influence people? Why would I want to be a pig? To have some authority? So you think that's what they're supposed to be doing all day and feel high and mighty and stuff? And definitely not serving and protecting the public, because, that doesn't seem like that's what an empowering person with authority would do. Seems like to protect and serve is a humbling experience. Giving your life for someone else. Actually, yeah, I've dug a 6-foot by 10-foot hole by hand with a shovel before. Actually, I have. That's why I know how hard it is. I've also dug up a fucking tree stump root ball and had to chop the roots and stuff with an axe by hand. So yeah, I do know how hard it is, actually. And that's why I said he's not digging a fucking 20-foot hole in the fucking forest with trees around. No. Not with one person, not without any machinery. Nope. And if he did, he wouldn't look like a fat fuck. So yeah, I do. I guess I do know what I'm talking about. I'm not just a dumb tree climbing guy. And if you wanted to feel empowering and badass about stuff, you're telling me I should be a cop. Why should I be a sissy cop? Why should I have a job that's less dangerous than the job I have now if I want to feel authority and powerful and stuff, right? I already work in the most dangerous industry. It's more dangerous than being a cop. So, you know how many times I could have died this year? I don't count. I could have died this week because I'm in that dead maple tree. Could have died there. Could have had a couple of roping accidents. There's been a number of times if I was standing 6 foot that way, I'd have been crushed. Or it swung the wrong way, or hell, you have a hydraulic line blow up and stuff, blow up in your face. You get the hydraulic pressure gets shot up into your vein and stuff. Now you gotta get shit amputated and stuff. I mean, fingers crossed. I about almost broke this. Almost thought I was gonna lost a fingernail. And shit smashed and almost had my got a little damage right there from peeling out a little bit. Got 2 cuts right there. Could have cut my arms off and stuff. Yeah, we're not just some dumb tree climbers not knowing what we're doing. We're actually a very sophisticated industry with a highly amount of stress-inducing danger practically every single day. I mean, this summer season alone, I could have died at least a dozen or 2 dozen times. Or seriously hurt. I mean, seriously hurt is even more. I mean, yeah. So you can try to belittle me from being a tree trimmer or whatever. That's fine. We really don't give a shit because if we encourage and invite anyone who wants to join our industry to go ahead and try. Hopefully, and we hope that you last because we don't have enough people to feed this industry. So we hope you can actually do our job and you can last because we don't have enough people who can show up and actually last. People show up all the time, want to work. You work in some 85, 90-degree days, nonstop, hours and hours, hours. Sometimes lunch is late. Sometimes lunch doesn't ever come. That will that's empowering. That will empower you to be able to feel that you can go through some shit and struggle and still be all right. But yeah, actually, being a tree trimmer is the most physically demanding job, most physically demanding things that I've ever done in my life. I've went to the gym and killed myself, almost physically exerted myself to the point where you're about dead. That is like an every other day, weekly occurrence here. Pushing yourself, working nonstop stuff that just has to get done. Physically exerting yourself, being super dehydrated, overheated and stuff. I have never ever have been able to push myself in the gym as much as I've been pushing myself on a job site. Insist it has to get done. Fuck, you're tired. Your arms are dead, tired, and guess what? You still have another job. You got to get in that roof. You got to catch this branch. You got to lift this shit off the roof and throw it so it don't smash a fence, smash a window, hurt anyone, things like that. You're already dead ass tired. Now you physically have to do stuff 40 feet up in the air, toss 50, 100 pounds worth of logs off the roof because of storm damage. Hell, there was a 17-year-old kid who was on a work site here in Michigan, died. Was cutting, chainsaw came back up, cut his throat. Done. Dead. I've been on job sites where the previous company's guy died on the job site. And we have to finish that job. And you see the fucking air conditioning unit dented in where the guy fell. Died. Because he was tree trimming. I will do Texas Jack. I always like a good laugh. I had a girlfriend with a brown butt in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu who thought she could get me to tap out. She'd get so mad that I could get out of every hole by standing up and putting her in the air jail every time. Yeah, I'm sure she knows what to do. I'm sure she definitely knows what to do. Just she's not physically strong enough, unfortunate. Yeah, yeah, a big difference there. You want to get into politics and all that. Yeah, it's a big difference. But even a woman who trains and stuff and can kick ass still has a better fighting chance against a man than a woman who doesn't know how to do anything. It's only naturally fighting. It doesn't know how to do. At least a woman who understands and gets taught what to do knows what she should do, even though physically she might not be able to do it. And women are not as tough as men, so when they take damage, they tend to give up a lot easier and faster. With men will continue to fight. Some men, I don't know, everyone's different, but typically, even when a person who doesn't know what they're doing in a life and death situation, all of a sudden they can become an animal. But yeah, anyways, Texas Jack says, I remember reading somewhere pizza delivery guys die in the land of Judea more than cops do. Yes, actually, more cops die from car crashes from not wearing a seatbelt than by anything else. So because they don't wear seatbelts, because they're above the law, I guess, or whatever stupid ass policy reason, they don't wear seatbelts so they can jump out of the car faster, is the whole reasoning, right? Well, since they don't wear seatbelts like they're lawfully supposed to, that is the number one killer of all cops in America is car crashes due to chases, and they simply don't wear seatbelts and stuff. So I'm not really sure how it's the most dangerous hard job when that's the number one killer, and a simple click it could fix it. That's another thing. But that's another avenue and stuff right there. When it comes to using the cop argument as a good basis for some moral or justice or hard or deadly kind of occupation and stuff, when reality is, when you look at the stats and stuff, it's only deadly from the car crashes and stuff. I mean, yeah, there's shootings and stuff, but just a small percentage of that is from shootings and stuff. Majority it is actually from car crashes and suicide. And 4 or 5 years ago, a medical mystery was taking them all out too. But we're not allowed to talk about that on here. Yeah. It's always good to have good fond memories and stuff. Well, we went 3 hours and stuff, thanks to some discussions and back and forth and some disagreements and agreements and stuff for the people in chat, and that's what it's all about. I don't have to agree with every single thing that people say in my chat, and don't have to like what everyone says. I might have a little, kickback at some of those comments and stuff, a little digs at me and stuff, which is fine. I'm not gonna blow up and say, "Yeah, you fucking piece of shit, you're out of here, you're gone, fuck you, you kicked and stuff." I'll explain my side in the way I think is appropriate, and have a different discussion for next time. That's what I try to bring on this channel and stuff. If you guys wanted to come on and talk about it, talk about stuff, and be like that, it's fine. I think there's open discussion, and there should be some dialogue against different aisles and people who you do disagree with on things. When you put up a big wall or block people, or I'm not going to deal with them because of, they said this mean thing, or they believe in this, or what, he was talking shit about Paul Freeman, and I really like Paul Freeman, so fuck him. I'm not talking to him. I'm not watching him. I'm not nothing. Then how are we supposed to grow or learn or have an avenue of discussion that can advance anything if we just put a wall up? You can't talk about it, or you get so heated and foaming at the mouth and all that. You can't have a good discussion. You can't have debate. You can't have disagreeing opinions and stuff. So that's why I'm pretty open about free speech and people giving their opinions, whether you like them or not. If you think it's full of shit or not, I don't have a reason to block someone or not let them be allowed. And some people might get upset, think I'm giving them a podium to speak and be radical or be this and be that. It's like, okay, well, okay, cool. They probably get more radicalized when you put a bit of fucking wall and you can't talk to them and stuff. You don't know what's going on behind the wall. I mean, that's probably how you get assumptions and things like that. But when you have videos of people saying stuff from their own mouth, it's hard to assume stuff. It's hard to put the words in their mouth for them when they're on video talking about that. So I would invite anyone to look at, take a look at the Paul Freeman stuff at their live shows, talking about the Paul Freeman, the good, the bad, and the ugly, I think is one of the titles, I believe. There's I think a 4-part series. We talk a little bit about it. And then I think maybe a 5th one that we kind of dive into some other things. But yeah, I am done. I officially read through all those chats and stuff. I appreciate everyone who's taken the time to watch this, to reach out, comment, and anything like that. It's always a fun pleasure. And it's good to have, again, discussions, debate, questions, comments, and concerns. That is okay and stuff. What is not okay is foaming at the mouth and getting upset about whatever people said, whether you agree, don't like it, or it's horrible, disgusting, nasty, scumbag shit, or it's whatever. You're going to see it in real life. You're probably going to experience it in real life. So don't let it get to your head too much. Because there are real world issues, real world dealings and problems that will matter a lot more than what some stranger on the internet said behind a post. A person who you've never met, will never meet, a person who has no influence on your life, who doesn't matter in your life, who's not part of your family in an immediate circle. So don't let them rob you of your joys or influence you in a negative way simply from the words that are coming out of their mouth. You are physically, mentally, and spiritually stronger and better than that. So without further ado, guys, I hope God bless each and every one of you. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening, night, morning, or whenever you are viewing this. And hopefully we can actually find some awesome evidence of Bigfoot soon. Lay this thing kind of to rest. Not really, because we'll only dive into it more and more with the discovery. But we can actually move on from this stagnant pond of muddy fucking water that all we're doing is splashing around, muddying the water more instead of moving outside into a clear, fast-flowing river of information, new discovery, ideas, and everything else. So hopefully things will change sooner rather than later. And as we crash this fiery plane into the ground as we shut this show down, I want everyone to try to make them something better in their life. Try to better themselves physically, spiritually, or mentally, whatever it is. Turn that TV off, shut that social media down a little bit, and take some time to gather yourself together. Without further ado, guys, we're crashing this plane down.